Chapter 2967. That was the truth. The Supremes present were all elites among the Supremes. They were definitely stronger than Night Sorrow. However, even if they succeeded in killing him here, they would be severely punished by the Eternal Supreme World. Even if they did not die, it would not be any better. Therefore, the question of who would do it was definitely a problem. That's a problem. In my opinion, let Wuji choose the Supremes to do it. Whoever is chosen will kill Night Sorrow. How does that sound? All the Supremes present agreed to deal with Night Sorrow. However, the question of who would do it was a problem. Supreme Yuling voiced her opinion when everyone was at a stalemate. Let Feng Wuji choose the one who would do it. Let Wuji choose the one who would do it. We believe that Wuji will choose the most suitable one. After Supreme Yuling voiced her opinion, everyone felt that there was no other way. Besides, Feng Wuji was present. Naturally, no one dared to object. They all agreed. However, at this moment, Feng Wuji stepped forward and said coldly, "I don't want to be the bad guy. You can choose the one who would do it by drawing lots." Drawing lots? That's a good idea. It's obviously fairer. Wuji is wise. After Feng Wuji finished speaking, everyone agreed. Then, the 108 Supremes began to draw lots to kill Night Sorrow. To everyone, the probability of drawing one out of the 108 was very low. No one thought that they would be the unlucky one. Therefore, everyone began to draw lots. In the end, the one who was drawn was the Bone Abhijna of the Bone Realm. This Bone Abhijna was known as the White Bones Supreme. Among the 108 Supremes, his strength was below average. However, in everyone's opinion, his strength was more than enough to deal with Night Sorrow. White Bones Supreme, since you've been drawn, you have to accept the reality. If anything happens in the Bone Realm, go and make arrangements. Just come back within 50 years. If Night Sorrow doesn't die in the small world by then, kill him on the spot. After drawing lots, Feng Wuji did not say anything and left immediately. Autark Yuling walked over to Autark Whitebone's side and gave him some instructions. Autark Whitebone then left. Supremacy Yuling, you're letting Supremacy Whitebones leave just like that? Aren't you afraid that he won't return? Dao Wui asked in confusion when Sovereign Whitebone teleported back to the Bone Realm. In his opinion, he should keep an eye on Whitebone's supremacy and not let him go anywhere. If Night Sorrow didn't die, he would attack him directly. When water is full, it will overflow. It's not good to go overboard. In addition, we can rest assured that he won't dare to not come. Think about it, if it were you, would you dare to not come? Supreme Yuling sneered. The Supreme Martial Artists present thought for a moment and felt that no one would dare to offend so many territories at once. On the other side, after Night Sorrow killed all the people in Xian Bing's territory, the 10,000 Sword Sect, Shao Tianxian, and the others were all summoned out of the heavenly abode to distribute the spoils of this battle. Only Wu Lingfei was left in the heavenly abode to cultivate because she had used up too much energy after undergoing nirvana consecutively and had just become an intermediate ruler. After distributing the resources and artifacts to everyone, Yishan said, "Normally, I should try to absorb the earthly sovereign's precepts and essence. However, I'm a little tired from the continuous cultivation. Next, I'm going to fight with everyone. What do you think? Now that I've advanced to the sovereign realm, it's time for us to change our target." We should change our target. You took down Xian Bing's territory in the top 150. The top 1000 shouldn't be a problem. Even the top 100 is very likely. But since it's our target, let's set it higher. Let's aim to get into the top 64, which is the top 2 in the lesser realms. What do you all think? The 10,000 Sword Sect said excitedly after Night Sorrow spoke. If someone had told him that he could get into the top 100 before participating in the War of Providence, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. However, Yi Shang's strength gave him the confidence to do so. I'm not sure how strong the 16th ranked Dao World territory is. If we can suppress them and enter the final battle for the championship, that'll be great. That way, we can get a lot of resources. Yuan Fengshui said with a face full of anticipation. The divine world had only advanced to the finals during its strongest era, and its best ranking had been 12th. Actually, we don't have to defeat the divine world territory if we want to be the first to advance. It'll be fine as long as we have enough points. Upon hearing Yuan Fengshui's words, Night Sorrow smiled and said, in fact, we can hunt dire wolves continuously to obtain points. That's right. Although the Dao world territory is strong, we don't have to fight them head-on. Yuan Fengshui's eyes lit up as he said, then what are we hesitating for? Let's hurry up and hunt dire wolves. Killing one will only give us 1 point. We still need to accumulate a lot. But what if we encounter that Supreme Wolf King again? Murong Jinlu looked at Yuan Fengshui and asked Night Sorrow, Brother Yi, are you confident in dealing with it? I'm not sure. But we can give it a try. Even if we can't defeat it, we should be able to escape successfully. Night Sorrow said and looked at Shui Changtian. Brother Shui, take out the battleship. We'll head to the grassland area immediately. Okay. At that moment, Shui Changtian was also excited. He immediately took out the battleship and let everyone board. At that moment, Myriad Sword Sect suddenly said, I keep feeling that something in this mountain peak is summoning me. Why don't you guys go? I'll stay here and investigate what's going on. Oh. Could it be related to your expertise in swordsmanship? Xiao Tianxian glanced at the giant sword-shaped mountain peak and the stone pillar on top of it and asked doubtfully. I'm not sure, but I feel that this summoning has no ill intentions. The master of the 10,000 swords frowned as he spoke, and then looked down at the mountain below as well. Brother Wan, do you need our help? If you need anything, just tell us directly. Night Sorrow looked at Myriad Sword Sect. He was a little worried about leaving him here alone. No need. Everyone still has to compete for first place with the Dao World Territory. There's no need to waste time on me. Myriad Sword Sect looked at everyone one by one and said with a smile, anyway, the grassland is not far away. If there's anything, I'll send a voice transmission to everyone. You really don't need our help? Yuan Fengshui looked at Myriad Sword Sect worriedly, worried that he would encounter some danger alone. There's really no need. I have a premonition that I have to do this myself. The master of the 10,000 swords said without hesitation and flew down. Genius memorized this site's address in a second. Clan mobile version reading website. Chapter 2968. Do we really not need help? I feel that Sword Sect is too embarrassed to trouble everyone, that's why they left so resolutely. Looking at Myriad Sword Sect's back view getting further and further away, Yuan Fengshui frowned and said. She was really worried. At this time, Xiao Tianxian sighed and said, let him be. If anything happens, we'll immediately come to support. And that's the only way. But we can set up a teleportation array here and another one in the grassland. If anything happens, we'll just teleport over. Yi Shang said as he flew to the top of the mountain and began to set up a teleportation array. After setting up the teleportation array, Night Sorrow returned to the battleship and rushed to the edge of the grassland with everyone. Although Night Sorrow had advanced to the ruler realm and had the strength to fight against Supremes, the people of the heavenly realm were still very careful. When they were close to the grassland, Xiao Tianxian walked to Night Sorrow and said, Night Sorrow, the dire wolves on the grassland seem to be endless. Should we come up with a suitable strategy? We can set up a formation, but there's no need. You guys don't have to make a move, I'll fight by myself. Yi Shang suddenly said as he glanced at the vast grassland. He knew that after a while, the Supreme Wolf King would definitely come. Night Sorrow wanted to test his strength. He wanted to see if he could really fight against the Supreme Wolf King. If he could defeat the Supreme Wolf King, then the people of the heavenly realm could kill the dire wolves with ease. All right. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Xiao Tianxian understood what he meant. Although the others wanted to make a move, they restrained themselves, afraid of causing trouble for Night Sorrow. Then, the people who had just come out returned to the heavenly realm. You have to be careful in the battle with the Wolf King. Wu Lingfei, who knew that Night Sorrow would definitely fight with the Supreme Wolf King, couldn't help but remind him. Don't worry. If I can't win, I'll immediately escape. Night Sorrow said and used his movement technique to fly towards the grassland. Not long after entering the grassland, Night Sorrow activated the sea serpent's eye and observed. With a glance, he immediately discovered a large number of dire wolves hiding in the bushes. There are so many of them, and you still want to launch a sneak attack? How can there be such an opportunity? The dire wolves hiding in the bushes were all prepared to attack, but none of them attacked. From the looks of it, he seemed to be waiting for Night Sorrow to lower his guard and launch a surprise attack. After observing for a moment, Night Sorrow smiled and released his god's domain. At the same time, he sent an attack downwards. A stream of light shot out from Night Sorrow's hand and bombarded the grassland. Immediately, a dozen dire wolves were sent flying. The defense of these dire wolves wasn't very strong, so they died immediately after being hit by Night Sorrow's attack. Awoo! Seeing Night Sorrow make his move, the surrounding dire wolves all roared. Then, the entire grassland was filled with thunderous wolf howls. Soon after, the black eyes of some of the nearby dire wolves turned red. All of them rushed towards Yishan to kill him. Good. They're all points. Facing these dire wolves again, Night Sorrow's mood was completely different from the last time. He started to fight calmly. After advancing to the Dominator level, he was indeed not someone these dire wolves could fight against. Soon, a few hundred of them were killed by Night Sorrow. By the time Night Sorrow had killed a few hundred wolves, he had obtained more than 700 points. Suddenly, a huge wolf howl came from afar. You're finally here? Good timing. Hearing this wolf howl, Night Sorrow immediately looked into the distance and saw an incomparably huge Supreme Wolf King appear on the horizon. This time, there was no need for the Supreme Wolf King to chase after him. Night Sorrow used his movement technique to fly in its direction. Awoo! Seeing Night Sorrow flying towards it, the Supreme Wolf King seemed to have provoked the Supreme Wolf King. The Supreme Wolf King seemed to have suffered a great provocation. It howled at the sky and pounced towards Yishan. So it's a beast that only knows how to kill. It didn't seem like this the last time we met. The Supreme Wolf King was extremely ferocious, but Night Sorrow was sure that it was a half-alive, half-dead creature. It only had the instinct to kill and didn't have any other consciousness. It seemed to be different from the last time they met. However, Night Sorrow didn't have time to think. He shot out his reincarnation spear and fought against it. Although the Supreme Wolf King didn't have any consciousness, its strength was definitely that of a true Supreme. Boom! Night Sorrow didn't choose to dodge. Instead, he chose to take the Supreme Wolf King head-on. When he attacked, he immediately clashed with the Supreme Wolf King. After the collision, Night Sorrow was immediately sent flying and smashed into the ground. What powerful strength! A Supreme is indeed a Supreme. It's not easy to deal with. Night Sorrow, who was sent flying, felt his entire body aching. However, his body was very strong and didn't suffer any external injuries. He immediately praised. After Night Sorrow was sent flying, the other Dominator dire wolves immediately pounced towards him. Each of them was so ferocious that they seemed to have gone crazy. You don't have the qualifications to be fierce. Soft Dragon Roar. Facing these ordinary dire wolves, Night Sorrow didn't even make a move. He only used Soft Dragon Roar. After he used it, the hundreds of ordinary dire wolves in the surroundings were instantly shattered. Night Sorrow's points on his identity plate also increased. Awoo! After Night Sorrow killed these dire wolves, the Supreme Wolf King in the sky suddenly roared in anger. This Supreme Wolf King seems to be different. At this moment, Night Sorrow, who got up from the ground, discovered that the Supreme Wolf King's aura had changed again. Its aura seemed to have increased a little and became even more manic. Night Sorrow frowned and thought to himself, Could it be that my killing of the ordinary dire wolves made the Supreme Wolf King stronger and made it even more ferocious? After coming to this conclusion, Night Sorrow didn't fight the Supreme Wolf King head-on when it attacked again. Instead, he used his movement technique to dodge and attack the other ordinary dire wolves again. From start to finish, he killed another 300+ dire wolves. After Night Sorrow killed these dire wolves, the Supreme Wolf King indeed changed again. Not only did its aura become stronger, but it also became more ferocious. Its huge wolf head also looked even more malevolent. Moreover, the Supreme Wolf King's god domain had turned from gray to dark red. It seems that my judgment was correct. Killing ordinary dire wolves made the Supreme Wolf King even stronger and more ferocious. It seems that I can't kill ordinary dire wolves for the time being. After Night Sorrow had this thought, he lured the Supreme Wolf King into the sky. Because their speed was too fast, the other ordinary dire wolves were completely left behind and couldn't catch up. Now we can fight normally. At this moment, Night Sorrow stopped running. Instead, he stayed in the sky and waited for the Supreme Wolf King to attack. Although the current Supreme Wolf King's strength had increased a little, it was still a lower supreme being. He had a chance. Clan M. Chapter 2969. Between Night Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King, who do you think will win? The battle between Night Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King had attracted the attention of all the Supremes who were watching the battle outside. Supreme Yuling asked at that moment. Most of the sovereigns remained silent on this question. Only Dao Wui said, I think Night Sorrow will definitely lose because he's choosing the environment. That's a sign of weakness. That makes sense, but I think Night Sorrow will win. Although the Supreme Wolf King looks very ferocious, it shouldn't be his match. When Supreme Yuling heard Dao Wui's answer, she pursed her lips and continued, however, no matter who wins, this is a good opportunity to observe him. Now, let's watch the battle carefully. I'll provide this information to the people of the Dao World Territory. Good. Of course, that's good. Dao Wui's lips curled into a smile. He could not contact the people of the Dao World Territory personally. However, as the host of this battle, Supreme Yuling could do that. After Yuling finished speaking, all the Supreme Beings turned their attention to Yishang. At that moment, one of the Supremes suddenly said, none of the Supremes guarding the 32 small worlds have been killed. If Night Sorrow can successfully kill the Supreme Wolf King, he will obtain 32,999 points. If that's really the case, the Dao World Territory can only reverse the points by destroying the Divine World Territory. Supreme Yuling, it's best to get the rulers of the Dao World Territory to hurry over. Yes. This seat had forgotten about this matter. In the battle for Providence, killing the Supremes guarding the small worlds would normally obtain 999 points as a reward. However, if one killed the 32 small worlds, they would obtain 32,999 points as a reward. That was 31,968 points, which was a very difficult result to surpass. Even if there were still 80 to 90 years, it would be impossible for the Dao World Territory to win against the Divine World Territory using points. Everyone who did not want to see the Divine World rise again frowned and thought of countermeasures. Supreme Yuling directly contacted the people of the Dao World Territory and told them where Night Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King were fighting, wanting them to reap the benefits. What? The Night Sorrow of the God Realm is actually able to challenge the Supreme Wolf King on his own with the cultivation of a lower-level sovereign? After receiving Yuling's reminder, Yuling's expression changed drastically. The strongest expert in the Dao World's territory, Dao Jun, was immediately surprised. Right now, he was a half-step supreme, which was the peak of the ruler realm. He should have the strength to fight the Supreme Wolf King. However, when he encountered the Supreme Wolf King, he didn't fight it head-on and immediately fled. If he had heard that Night Sorrow was fighting alone against the Supreme Wolf King, he would have regretted it. He felt that he should have challenged the Supreme Wolf King back then. Someone is challenging the Supreme Wolf King. Let's rush over immediately. After calming down, Dao Jun gathered the people of the Dao world who were fighting and told them that Night Sorrow had challenged the Supreme Wolf King. What? That divine king, Night Sorrow, had advanced to the ruler realm and could even fight against the Supreme Wolf King? How is this possible? Upon hearing Dao Jun talk about the battle between Night Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King, Dao Tianming, who had once threatened to take him in as a slave, was immediately dumbfounded. Nothing is impossible. If he didn't have special potential, why would the limitless earthly supremacy deliberately target him and give him the earthly supremacy law and essence for us to covet? Dao Jun, who was relatively calm, ordered the people of the Dao world to board the battleship and fly toward the location where Night Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King were fighting. They were not close to the location of the battle, so it would take them about a month to arrive. Thus, Dao Jun was somewhat anxious. He was afraid that Night Sorrow could really kill the Supreme Wolf King and obtain a large number of points, laws, and essence. Furthermore, he would absorb the earthly supremacy law and essence and his strength would reach an immeasurable level. Thus, after entering the grassland, he ordered, "Let's not rush to their location. Let's kill the wolf cubs first. The more we kill, the better." "Leader, do you mean to let the Supreme Wolf King obtain the power of these dire wolves and become even stronger?" Upon hearing Dao Jun's words, Dao Tianming immediately understood what he meant. However, Dao Tianming then said worriedly, "If the Supreme Wolf King becomes too strong, it will be very difficult for us to deal with it in the later stages. After all, apart from points, we can also obtain a large number of rewards by killing each supremacy guardian." The Dao world territory had always been ranked in the top 20 of the entire Eternal Supreme world. Its results in the battle for Providence had always been very stable and it had almost never fallen out of the top 30. Their understanding of the contest was much greater than Yishan's. Dao Jun, Dao Tianming, and the others had long known that killing the dire wolves could increase the Supreme Wolf King's strength. Killing it could also obtain additional rewards in addition to points. Upon hearing Dao Tianming's words, Dao Jun snorted coldly. "This is better than Night Sorrow killing the Supreme Wolf King." "That's true. How can someone from a trash territory want to defy the heavens? How is that possible?" After saying that, Dao Tianming led the other people of the Dao world territory to attack the dire wolves on the grassland. They killed along the way and very soon, they killed thousands of dire wolves. As they moved forward and killed along the way, Night Sorrow had already fought more than 100 rounds with the Supreme Wolf King. Originally, Night Sorrow had already vaguely gained the upper hand in the battle. However, as the Supreme Wolf King's strength increased, the battle gradually became strenuous. There were faint signs of defeat. What's going on? Why is the Supreme Wolf King getting stronger as it fights? Murong Jinlu, who was in the spatial grotto heaven, frowned and said when he saw the Supreme Wolf King getting stronger. According to the battle situation just now, Night Sorrow could have killed the Supreme Wolf King. There should be someone from a territory hunting the dire wolves. After the dire wolves are killed, the Supreme Wolf King will obtain power. It will also become increasingly out of control and become a monster that only knows how to kill. Night Sorrow, who had just taken a breath, immediately explained to everyone in the spatial grotto heaven. At the same time, he thought to himself, should I use the absolute technique comprehended from the Horn Clan's supreme law and essence? Woo! Just as Night Sorrow was slightly distracted, the Supreme Wolf King attacked him again. This time, the Supreme Wolf King executed its innate absolute technique. Supreme Wolf King Claw. Its body was already very strong to begin with, so after it used the Supreme Wolf King Claw, its huge wolf claws immediately became bigger and longer in the void. He stretched out his hand and slapped towards Yishan's location. Yang Clan Sky-Splitting Art. In the face of this move, Night Sorrow immediately executed the Yang Clan Sky-Splitting Art to resist it. Boom! Night Sorrow, who had struck the golden heavenly halberd in the void, was suddenly slapped by the huge wolf claw and suddenly fell to the ground. Clan M. Chapter 2970. The Supreme Wolf King's attack this time was too powerful, far beyond Night Sorrow's imagination. Even if it absorbed the energy of the dire wolf, its strength shouldn't have increased so much. Night Sorrow, who slowly stopped after falling for tens of thousands of feet, couldn't help but sigh with emotion at the Supreme Wolf King's power. He naturally knew that this was the result of the Supreme Wolf King's ultimate skill, but the increase was too shocking. The strength of the attack was somewhat beyond his endurance. Awoo! At this moment, the Supreme Wolf King chased after them relentlessly from the sky. Once again, it used the Supreme Wolf King claw on Night Sorrow. This attack was almost exactly the same as the previous one. Night Sorrow didn't choose to take it head-on. While using the Void Dragon movement technique to dodge, he activated the Treastrimsa Heaven Battle Secret technique. At this time, the Treastrimsa Heaven Battle Secret technique could increase his strength by almost 30 times. In an instant, he was countless times stronger. Come on. Let's continue to fight. You're not the only one who can increase his strength. After adjusting his state to the best, Night Sorrow, who was holding the golden heavenly halberd, thought about the ultimate skill that he had comprehended from the Supreme Law. He shot out the newly comprehended Supreme Tribulation Lightning Spear at the Supreme Wolf King. When the Supreme Tribulation Lightning Spear was shot out, countless Supreme Tribulation Lightning appeared in the void behind Night Sorrow's body and suddenly blasted toward the Supreme Wolf King. Boom! 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 Although the Supreme Wolf King's speed was fast, it was obviously not faster than the lightning. It was continuously bombarded by the Supreme Tribulation Lightning. Just when it was temporarily paralyzed by the Tribulation Lightning, Night Sorrow completely used the golden heavenly halberd and shot out the essence of the Supreme Tribulation Lightning Spear. In an instant, dazzling lightning bloomed on the golden heavenly halberd. It suddenly blasted toward the Supreme Wolf King. After Night Sorrow's attack, although the Supreme Wolf King recovered from the paralysis, its movements were obviously affected. It was directly bombarded at the neck. Its protective divine domain was immediately pierced, and a deep wound was also pierced at the neck. However, the Supreme Wolf King didn't bleed. This made Night Sorrow a little surprised. Could it be that this Supreme Wolf King is a puppet that was refined? That might really be the case. Xiao Tianxian, who was in the space paradise, immediately replied. He also felt that the Supreme Wolf King's condition was a little strange. Forget it, let's not think about these things. Just fight with peace of mind. No matter what, this battle was not in vain. After injuring the Supreme Wolf King, Night Sorrow took a deep breath and once again struck out with his reincarnation spear. This time, when he struck out with the reincarnation spear, he channeled the power of virtue into it. That was because the Wolf King looked like a puppet and a blood corpse. In any case, it wasn't a normal creature. He wanted to test out his power of virtue to see if it would work. Boom! This time, Night Sorrow's attack succeeded again. The power of virtue was obviously more effective than the golden heavenly halberd. It was clearly a very holy power, but when it hit the divine king of the Supreme Alpha Wolf, it was extremely corrosive. The Supreme Wolf King howled in pain towards the sky. Looks like you should be a blood corpse refined by a supreme or earth sovereign. With the power of virtue taking effect, Night Sorrow immediately felt much more relaxed. In the subsequent battle, he completely suppressed the Supreme Wolf King. Since the power of virtue is useful, it proves that killing you will give me the power of virtue. Good, this is very good. Now, Night Sorrow was actually very worried about not having a place to obtain the power of virtue. Now that he realized that the power of virtue was effective on the Supreme Wolf King, he immediately became energetic. The Supreme Wolf King would become more and more weak in the future. No. This won't do. If this continues, Night Sorrow will kill the Supreme Wolf King very soon. Dao Wui, who was watching this battle from the outside world, immediately roared when he saw Night Sorrow use the power to restrain the Supreme Wolf King. Then, he looked at Supreme Yuling and said, Supreme Yuling, do me a favor. Send a voice transmission to Dao Jun and ask him to kill the dire wolf faster. As he spoke, he handed over a bag of things to Supreme Yuling. He came from the Dao world territory, so he was naturally anxious when he saw Night Sorrow's power. He. Dao brother, you're too polite. Supreme Yuling said politely, but in fact, she took the bag from Dao Wui. Then, she sent a voice transmission to Dao Jun, Night Sorrow is about to kill the Supreme Wolf King. You don't have enough time to rush over. Kill the dire wolves immediately, or it will be too late. What? Night Sorrow is actually so powerful. Although Dao Jun did not make a move, the other people in the Dao world territory kept killing the dire wolves. At this point in the battle, they had already killed more than 2,000 dire wolves. Upon receiving Supreme Yuling's voice transmission, Dao Jun immediately took out his Hongjun umbrella and attacked the dire wolves on the grassland. Leader is using the Supreme Divine Weapon. I'm afraid things are not simple. Upon seeing Dao Jun start using the Supreme Divine Weapon, Hongjun umbrella, Dao Tianming immediately realized what was happening on Night Sorrow's side. At that moment, he could not help but grit his teeth and say, I didn't expect an ant like you to really overturn the heavens. At the same time, he immediately used his Supreme Divine Weapon and attacked the dire wolves with all his might. After everyone in the Dao world territory attacked the dire wolves with all their might, the Supreme Wolf King, who was fighting Night Sorrow, simply showed a straight increase in strength. After being suppressed by Night Sorrow for a while, it actually advanced to the Middle Supremacy Realm. After advancing to the Middle Supremacy Realm, the Supreme Wolf King, who had been suppressed by Night Sorrow's power of merit, instantly turned the situation around. It regained the upper hand. Furthermore, its strength was still increasing. On the other side, Dao Jun, Dao Tianming, and the others were still killing the dire wolves. Night Sorrow, you can't continue fighting like this. It keeps getting stronger. Soon, you won't be able to hold on. Although Night Sorrow was at a disadvantage, he still persisted in fighting the Supreme Wolf King and soon suffered some injuries. Upon seeing Night Sorrow injured, Xiao Tianxian immediately reminded him. I'm somewhat unwilling to retreat now. I still have some absolute arts that I haven't used yet. I want to try them. If I'm still no match for it, we'll retreat immediately. Night Sorrow, who had swallowed 2 elixir pills and recovered to his best state, took a deep breath. He attacked the Supreme Wolf King with the absolute art that he had comprehended from the law and essence of the Horn Clan's supremacy. Destiny Reincarnation Spear. Not only did this spear contain the reincarnation attribute, but it also contained the destiny Dao that the Horn Clan's supremacy was proficient in. After it was shot out, even the sky and earth changed color. The Supreme Wolf King did not take this spear head-on. Instead, it chose to dodge. You want to dodge? If you dodge, you won't be called destiny. Upon seeing that the Supreme Wolf King wanted to dodge, Night Sorrow sneered. The reincarnation spear of destiny contained the word destiny, which was extremely mysterious. If the enemy's strength did not surpass Night Sorrow's by too much, it would simply be impossible to dodge. It was obviously a mistake for the Supreme Wolf King to choose to dodge. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Human mobile version reading website, M. Chapter 2971. Boom! The Supreme Wolf King, who chose to dodge, was immediately pierced through by Night Sorrow's move. The huge wolf head was pierced by the golden heavenly halberd and flew into the void. The Supreme Wolf King did not die after suffering such a serious injury. It let out a huge roar and went completely crazy. Not only did its divine territory turn completely red, but it was also completely blood red. After completely turning blood red, the Supreme Wolf King's realm rose to the Upper Supremacy Realm. Its aura increased tremendously again. Awoo! The Supreme Wolf King's strength had increased, and a blood-red horn had grown out of its forehead. After growing this horn, the Supreme Wolf King became even more ferocious. Furthermore, the blood-colored horn shot out a beam of light that shot towards Yishan. Although Night Sorrow set up the merit trap array and used his movement technique to dodge, he did not succeed in dodging this attack. After being hit by this blood-red beam of light, Night Sorrow felt like an ordinary person who had been struck by lightning. He felt like he was going to fall apart. How did it increase its realm again? I'm definitely not its match now. We should go. Night Sorrow, who was hit, felt very uncomfortable and could clearly feel the numbness in his body and the difference between him and the Supreme Wolf King. He immediately used the power of merit to cover himself and get rid of the blood-red energy. Although the effect was not complete, at least he could move normally. He immediately used the Void Dragon movement technique and started to run for his life. At this moment, the Supreme Wolf King had reached the upper supremacy realm. Both its strength and speed had increased tremendously. It could still keep up with Night Sorrow even when he tried his best to escape. This gave him considerable pressure. After all, he was not the only one facing the Supreme Wolf King. There were other people in the divine world in the space grotto heaven. If he could not escape now, the divine world would be completely annihilated except for the Myriad Sword sect. Ha ha ha. I didn't expect that the Supreme Wolf King would have such a move. It seems like he will be eliminated by the Supreme Wolf King without Dao Jun and the others. Upon seeing Night Sorrow being chased by the Supreme Wolf King, Dao Wui of the Dao world was the happiest. If he is eliminated now, then there will be a problem. White Bone Sovereign is not here. Who among us will deal with him? Supreme Yuling said with a frown after Dao Wui finished. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, he continued, this Night Sorrow has displayed such terrifying combat strength. He definitely can't be left alive. Why don't we all draw lots again? I think that if Night Sorrow is eliminated now, you should take over. After all, you were the one who released White Bone's Sovereign back to the Bone Realm. As soon as Supremacy Yuling finished speaking, a cold voice sounded. The one who spoke was the earthly sovereign, Feng Wuji. Hearing this voice, Supreme Yuling broke out in cold sweat. With a trembling voice, he replied, okay. Yuling solemnly obeys Master Wuji's order. At the same time, he prayed in his heart, hoping that Night Sorrow would not be eliminated so quickly. After all, it was not a big deal to use some small tricks in the battle for Providence. However, on this field, killing a participating cultivator would result in a huge backlash. If he attacked Night Sorrow, the gains would not make up for the losses. At the thought of this, Supreme Yuling secretly sent a voice transmission to Dao Jun, there's no need to kill the dire wolves anymore. The Supreme Wolf King has already taken the initiative and is chasing after Night Sorrow. I'll give you a position. All of you will go after Night Sorrow together. Do your best to kill him in the small world. Don't give him a chance to crush his identity nameplate. Yes. I understand, Supreme Yuling. Dao Jun, who had used the Hongjun umbrella to kill a large number of dire wolves, smiled when he heard this. His heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally relaxed. He had been extremely afraid that Yi Shang would steal the limelight of killing the Gatekeeper Prime. He looked at Dao Tianming and the others and said, don't fight with these trash anymore. Follow me to kill Night Sorrow. He has already been defeated by the Supreme Wolf King. Good. That's great. Upon hearing this, Dao Tianming and the others immediately perked up. Then, everyone returned to the battleship and chased after the position Supreme Yuling had provided. Very good. As long as we kill Night Sorrow, our Dao world territory will undoubtedly take first place in this small world. Upon seeing Dao Jun and the others chase after Night Sorrow, Dao Wui smiled proudly and said, Night Sorrow. Even if you can escape from the Supreme Wolf King's pursuit, can you escape from our eyes? I'd like to see where you can escape to with your injured body. While Dao Wui was staring at Night Sorrow, the Supreme Wolf King's pursuit had already begun. Night Sorrow was indeed vexed about being chased by the Supreme Wolf King because the other party was simply too fast. As he fled, he was hit continuously. What should we do about Brother Yi? From the looks of it, we won't be able to escape. The Supreme Wolf King, who had completely gone crazy, was so fast that it could continuously attack while chasing. This made Murong Zizhen, who was in the space grotto heaven, very anxious. As for Wu Lingfei and the others, they were already prepared to fight. As long as Night Sorrow spoke, they would come out to fight. However, given how valiant the Supreme Wolf King was, Night Sorrow naturally would not let them come out to die. He thought for a while and his eyes suddenly lit up. Although the Supreme Wolf King's speed is fast, it's definitely not faster than the teleportation Dharma array. We can use the teleportation Dharma array to teleport to the mountain where Brother Juan is at. The Supreme Wolf King definitely won't be able to track us from such a long distance. That's right. There's still the teleportation array. How could I have forgotten about this? This teleportation array was originally meant to save Brother Juan, but I didn't expect it to save us instead. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, Murong Zijin, who had originally been in despair, immediately became spirited. It seems like the saying, "A crafty rabbit has 3 burrows," makes sense. After thinking of a way to deal with this, Night Sorrow's face also revealed a trace of a smile. After that, under the pursuit of the Supreme Wolf King, he led the people of the God Realm territory and successfully escaped from the Supreme Wolf King's pursuit through the teleportation Dharma array. Building the teleportation Dharma array was something that Night Sorrow did casually. He did not expect that at the critical moment, it would save everyone's lives. After appearing at the other end of the teleportation Dharma array, he immediately let out a sigh of relief. After destroying the teleportation Dharma array, he apologized to everyone. "I'm sorry. I put everyone in danger, it's all my fault." What's wrong with that? Everyone has been through many things in the wind and rain, don't worry about this matter anymore. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Jin Xian immediately spoke up. He did not care at all, and felt that this matter was very exciting. Xiao Tianxian said in a calm voice. "For the future of the God Realm territory, we should do things as calmly as possible. There's nothing wrong with this. Next time, everyone should pay more attention." "Yes. I will pay attention. This time, we have really underestimated the Supreme Wolf King's combat power." Night Sorrow nodded. In this battle, if the Supreme Wolf King had not advanced to the level of an upper supremacy, he would have very likely killed it. However, there were no ifs in everything. Speaking of this matter, his choice was too risky. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 2972. Brother Yi, don't say it like that. Don't you want to kill the Supreme Wolf King and get a lot of points for the Heavenly Realm? Night Sorrow was blaming himself. Jin Xian immediately comforted him. At this time, Xiao Tianxian suddenly said, "Not good. Brother Juan is in trouble and is asking me for help." "What? Brother Juan is in trouble? Where is he?" Xue Changtian immediately asked after Xiao Tianxian finished speaking. "Under the mountain, about 100,000 miles away from us." Xiao Tianxian pointed at the foot and then looked at the huge stone pillars that were pressing down on the mountain. But the way to enter is not to directly sneak in. Instead, it is to use the teleportation array in the stone pillars. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go and save him immediately. Yuan Fengxue looked at the stone pillars and said anxiously. After knowing that Myriad Sword Sect was in danger, her face was full of worry. Brother Juan is indeed in danger, but Night Sorrow's injuries are not light. I think we should wait for him to recover before we go down. Otherwise, the gains will not make up for the losses. Although Xiao Tianxian was also worried for Myriad Sword Sect, after looking at Night Sorrow, he still asked everyone to calm down. But, Yuan Fengxue wanted to say something, but after looking at Night Sorrow, she held back. At this time, Night Sorrow shook his head and said, "How about this? I will enter Brother Zhao's space grotto heaven to recover, and you guys go. If there is a battle, I will appear immediately." "Good. This way, we won't delay anything." "Very good." Hearing this, Yuan Fengxue's serious expression relaxed a little. After that, Night Sorrow and Wu Lingfei entered Xiao Tianchuan's space grotto heaven together. When everyone was walking towards the thick stone pillars, Xiao Tianxian said, "Brother Juan entered the mountain and found a palace. There were many fierce beasts in the palace. These fierce beasts were guarding a huge sword. The sword was of supreme grade, but it was 100 times stronger than the immortal slaying sword in his hand. It was definitely a supreme grade, supreme divine artifact. However, when he wanted to take the sword, he was discovered by several powerful fierce beasts. Right now, he is being chased by these ferocious beasts. Is he injured? Yuan Fengxue asked worriedly. Her feelings towards the myriad sword sect were different from others. Xiao Tianxian glanced at Yuan Fengxue and said, "He's definitely injured, but his life isn't in danger for now." Phew. That's good. Yuan Fengshue's tense nerves relaxed a little. Then, under the lead of Xiao Tianxian, the group found an extremely hidden teleportation portal near the stone pillar. Activate it with eternal god crystals and teleport in. Where were the people from the heavenly realm sent to? Why isn't he in the image? After the people from the firmament world were teleported out, the people watching from the outside world were puzzled. Ever since Night Sorrow and the others had entered the small world, they had been under the surveillance of Supreme Yuling and the others. Now, they had vanished into thin air. While everyone was puzzled, Yuling frowned and said, "That's not right. Normally speaking, if they disappeared from the scene, then that was to be eliminated. They should appear in front of us. This is obviously not the case. Yes. This is obviously a little strange. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be a world within a small world in the small world." Dao Wui also frowned. He couldn't understand what was happening in front of him either. The other supreme beings present were the same. They really couldn't understand why this was happening. They could only ask Supreme Yuling to invite Feng Wuji. Feng Wuji came to the deck of the battleship and looked at the stone pillar in the image. He said in a low voice, "I didn't notice when I saw the stone pillar the first 2 times. Now, it seems that this is an ancient Dharma array used to suppress evil beings. If I'm not wrong, there should be some kind of evil being under this mountain peak." Evil being? Hearing Feng Wuji's words, Supreme Yuling and the others' faces darkened. This was especially so for Dao Wui, because the people from the Dao world were in this small world. If some kind of powerful evil being was released, the people from the Dao world would definitely be implicated. Don't worry, everyone. Let's take a look first. Aren't the people from the firmament world scouting the way now? If the situation isn't good, we'll summon all the participants in the small world. Feng Wuji said firmly and continued to observe the stone pillar in the image. However, after observing for a while, he didn't speak again. Many supreme beings were also watching these stone pillars. However, after watching for a long time, there was no change in the image. At that moment, Dao Wui hurriedly asked Supreme Yuling to send a message to the people from the Dao world so that they wouldn't continue chasing this way. Originally, they had already told Dao Jun and the others about Night Sorrow's injury and their location. The people from the Dao world were all chasing this way. After receiving Supreme Yuling's reminder, Dao Jun immediately ordered, "Let's change direction and not chase after the people from the firmament world." "Leader, what happened? Now that Night Sorrow is injured, isn't it a good chance for us to kill him?" Dao Tianming asked in confusion. "What do you know? Now that the people from the firmament world have mistakenly entered the ancient Dharma array used to suppress evil beings, they might provoke an unparalleled evil being. We don't even have to do anything." Dao Jun frowned and said, "In addition, we have to be prepared to teleport out at any time. This. All right. Those people from the firmament world are really good at causing trouble." When Dao Tianming heard Dao Jun's words, he couldn't help muttering, "They're either challenging the Supreme Wolf King or... Huh? Aren't they from the Chaos Territory? They seem to be escaping. Let's kill them." Before Dao Tianming could finish, he saw the people from the Chaos Territory fleeing frantically on their battleships. According to the Dao world's way of doing things, they naturally wouldn't let go of a good opportunity to deal with them. After Dao Tianming finished speaking, Dao Jun also said, "Now that the threat from the firmament world has been eliminated, the Chaos Territory and the other 2 territories are our biggest opponents. We can't let them go. Follow me and kill them. After Dao Jun gave the order, everyone from the Dao world took out their divine weapons and attacked the people from the Chaos territory. Howl. However, just as they attacked, a huge wolf howl came from the horizon. Then, the Supreme Wolf King, who was covered in blood and extremely violent, appeared in the sky. Oh no! How can the Supreme Wolf King be so powerful? Dao Jun used his soul power to scan the Supreme Wolf King and his hair stood on end. He roared, "Run! This thing isn't something we can deal with." At that moment, he completely understood why the Chaos territory had escaped so thoroughly. It turned out that the Supreme Wolf King was chasing them. However, after the people from the Dao world attacked, the Supreme Wolf King locked its attention on them. Genius remembered the address of this site in 1 second. Human mobile version reading website, M. Chapter 2973. Thank you all so much. Everyone in the Chaos territory laughed when they saw the Supreme Wolf King lock its attention on the Dao realm territory. However, they did not stay there. Instead, they drove their battleships and disappeared into the horizon. Then, the Supreme Wolf King, who was completely crazy and only had a killing intent, immediately chased after the people in the Dao world territory. Being chased by the Supreme Wolf King, the people in the Dao world territory went crazy. They drove their battleships to escape continuously. However, after fleeing for a long time, they could not shake it off. Furthermore, during the chase, the Supreme Wolf King kept attacking the people in the Dao world territory, almost shattering their battleships. Under such circumstances, Dao Jun ordered, "Quickly find the people in the other territories and use them as scapegoats." Okay. That's the only way. Upon hearing this, Dao Tianming's eyes lit up. He started to drive his battleship to find the people in the other territories. For a moment, the entire small world was in chaos. The people in the Divine World territory, who were not affected by the normal disturbance, had already entered the inner space of the mountain through the teleportation array. This was a very magnificent bluestone palace. Standing at the entrance of the palace, Xiao Tianxian and the others were like ants looking at the door of a room. Brother Wan is in the depths of the palace. Let's go in. According to what he said, we won't encounter any danger when we enter the palace. Xiao Tianxian confidently observed the entrance of the palace and said to everyone, "Wait a minute, let me observe again." At that moment, Night Sorrow, who was originally recuperating, suddenly said. Then, he let Xiao Tianxian let him out and used the sea serpent's eye to carefully observe everything around him. Then, he nodded and said, "Everyone can enter. If you encounter anything difficult to solve, wake me up." After saying that, Night Sorrow re-entered Xiao Tianxuan's space grotto heaven to recuperate. The injuries caused by the Supreme Wolf King were extremely special and had a very strong corrosive attribute. If Night Sorrow did not have the power of merit, it would really be difficult to recover. While Night Sorrow was recuperating, Xiao Tianxian led the group deeper into the palace. As they walked, Xiao Tianxian frowned and said, "Before entering this place, I was still able to contact Brother Wan. Now, he's not responding at all. Could something have happened to Brother Wan?" Murong Ziliu asked worriedly. Everyone else in the God realm began to worry for the Myriad Sword sect. "I'm not sure. However, we should still speed up our progress to avoid any delays," Xiao Tianxian said, then led the people of the God realm into the palace. Merely, the palace was truly enormous. From their point of view, it simply did not resemble a palace at all. Instead, it was a vast world. The horizon, mountains, rivers, deserts, everything was there. Brother Wan said that he didn't want to stop, so he must be going through the desert ahead. "Everyone, be careful." After walking for a while, they arrived in front of a desert. Xiao Tianxian discussed with the group and felt that there was no need to interrupt Night Sorrow in this situation. After observing for a while, they walked into the desert and continued to walk forward. "I wonder how long it will take for us to walk out of this desert." The group flew close to the desert for 6 to 7 days, but they still could not see the end of the desert. Yuan Fengshui of the Myriad Sword sect said anxiously. If we keep walking, it shouldn't take long. After all, Brother Wan hasn't been here for long. Xiao Tianxian judged that the battle between Night Sorrow and Supreme Wolf King did not take too much time. I hope so. Yuan Fengshui said with an ugly expression. Actually, they were not flying too low, but the desert in front of them was still boundless. They could not see the end at all. Just like that, another month passed, and everyone realized that something was wrong. The time did not match at all. Xiao Tianxian contacted the Myriad Sword sect again, but still did not get any response. He sighed and said, I'm afraid we're trapped by a formation. We can only ask Night Sorrow to come out. Brother Yi is proficient in formations. Ask him to come out. Murong Zizhen nodded. Although he did not want to disturb Night Sorrow, they really could not find a way out of the desert. If they continued walking, the result would be the same. What happened? After being awakened, Night Sorrow came out of the space grotto heaven and asked curiously. At this time, his injuries had almost recovered and he was trying to absorb the earthly supreme's rules and essence, but the results were not great. We're trapped in the desert in front of us and can't find a way out. Xiao Tianxian said with a gloomy expression. To the group, being trapped here was a small matter, but it was a big matter if they were delayed in saving the Myriad Sword sect. I see. Let me take a look. Night Sorrow immediately flew into the air and opened the sea serpent's eye to observe. With this, he immediately understood why the group could not get out. It turned out that the entire desert was a trap formation. If they walked aimlessly through it, they would not be able to reach the end even if they walked for 100 or 1,000,000 years. This desert is a huge trap formation. The person who can set up such a formation should be at least an earthly supreme. After observing, Night Sorrow said to the group and began to try to break the formation. With the help of the sea serpent's eye, the process of breaking the formation was quite smooth. It took about 7 days to successfully break the trap formation. However, just as Yishang succeeded in breaking the formation, Yishang's eyes lit up. The desert beneath their feet instantly underwent an earth-shaking change. The fine sand that was originally still all began to flow like seawater. It formed more than a dozen sand pillars that reached the sky. After these sand pillars formed, they immediately swallowed the people of the heavenly realm. Everyone, quickly enter my space grotto heaven. I can escape faster if I escape alone. Seeing these sand pillars swallowing everyone, Night Sorrow immediately shouted and kept everyone in the heavenly realm into his space grotto heaven. Using his movement skill, he avoided the sand pillars that reached the sky. Why are there still living creatures? Night Sorrow's speed and body strength were already comparable to an ordinary earthly supreme. It was not difficult for him to avoid these sand pillars. However, when he was about to leave the sea of sand, he was stopped by a strange ferocious beast. This ferocious beast was 10,000 feet tall, larger than an ordinary mountain. When Night Sorrow was about to fly out of the sea of sand, it immediately stretched out its huge head and 8 tentacles from the sea of sand. Compared to its body, these tentacles looked slender and long. However, when it waved at Night Sorrow, it looked like a mountain peak was being lifted up. Its power was extremely shocking. What kind of monster is this? Judging from its aura, it doesn't seem to be at the sovereign realm. Could this be a earthly supreme ferocious beast? Xiao Tianxian, who was in the space grotto heaven, said doubtfully when he saw the monster in front of him. Genius remembered the address of this site in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 2974. It is indeed at the supreme level. Its strength should be slightly weaker than the Supreme Wolf King after it went berserk. After observing Night Sorrow with the sea serpent's eye, he raised his golden heavenly halberd and charged forward. At the same time, he kept everyone else into his own space grotto heaven. Because this beast's strength is at the supreme level, the others can't fight against it at all. Staying outside is tantamount to courting death. Night Sorrow, your injuries have just recovered a little. You must be careful in battle. After being kept in the grotto heaven, Xiao Tianxian said with a solemn expression. Murong Zhenlu and the others also spoke. Facing a supreme-level beast, they are powerless. They can only use this method to cheer for Night Sorrow. Yuan Fengshue kept looking into the distance, hoping to see the shadow of Myriad Sword Sect. He is worried that something will happen to Myriad Sword Sect. Boom! Blocking in front of the strange beast, Night Sorrow waved his golden heavenly halberd and smashed it on one of its tentacles. Although Night Sorrow's figure looks very small compared to the beast, his strength is not small at all. With a smash of the golden heavenly halberd, the beast's hard as iron tentacle was immediately blasted into a large hole and the incoming tentacle was blasted back. On the surface of the tentacle, a lot of dark green liquid flowed out. From the looks of it, it should be the beast's blood. Woo! After being injured by a blow, this beast with 8 tentacles, which is obviously different from an octopus, immediately went berserk. It crazily swung the other 7 uninjured tentacles and smashed them at Night Sorrow. Although these 7 tentacles are incomparably huge, they cooperate very well. Not only did they not interfere with each other, but they also formed a pincer attack on Night Sorrow. It feels like every tentacle is attacking him. From Night Sorrow's point of view, it is as if several mountains are smashing towards him. He has no room to dodge at all. Since there is no way to dodge, then let's face it head on. Don't think that you are invincible just because you are big. I will kill you and help me advance further. Facing the concentrated attacks of the tentacles, Night Sorrow roared and used the 33 Heaven secret combat technique to increase his strength. After that, he wielded the golden heavenly halberd and unleashed the human spear and a version of the reincarnation spear art. This move was similar to the Myriad Sword Sect's unity of man and sword. Night Sorrow fused with the golden heavenly halberd and instantly became a huge heavenly halberd. With the power of the heavenly halberd, it blasted towards the many tentacles of the ferocious beast. Clang! 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 Although this beast was huge and had a tough body, its body was too big, which made the strength of its tentacles inferior to Night Sorrow's. He was blasted by the reincarnation spear technique that was one with the spear. 3 tentacles were instantly pierced through. In terms of raw power, the current Yi Shang was not at all inferior to this ferocious beast. Furthermore, in terms of physical strength and speed, he was clearly superior to his opponent. To a sovereign, this wild beast was an absolute overlord, but Night Sorrow didn't fear it at all. Roar! After being pierced by Night Sorrow's tentacles again, the wild beast became even angrier. This time, after a loud roar, it pulled its body and tentacles into the sand. After about 10 breaths, its entire body drilled out of the sand. What a behemoth! Even though Night Sorrow was experienced and knowledgeable, Night Sorrow couldn't help but praise the figure of this wild beast. On each tentacle of this wild beast, there were thousands of suction cups, and each suction cup was larger than Night Sorrow's unity of man and spear. In front of it, Night Sorrow was even smaller than an ant facing a giant dragon. Primordial true fire. Just as Night Sorrow was lamenting that this wild beast was too huge, the wild beast suddenly spoke in human language, and then suddenly spat out an extremely hot flame. This flame is so terrifying. I have to avoid its edge. When this flame was spat out, even Night Sorrow, who had an extremely strong body, felt like he was being roasted. He immediately used his movement technique to dodge. After becoming a supreme being, he was still using the same movement technique as before. At this moment, he felt that it wasn't enough. Although he dodged very quickly, he was still burned by some of the flames. After being burned by these flames, Night Sorrow immediately turned back into his human form. His entire body was burning, and his entire body was paralyzed. He couldn't move at all. Woo! At this moment, the wild beast roared towards the sky and raised its foot to step on Night Sorrow, wanting to crush him to death. Brother Yi, be careful. In the space paradise, Jin Xian couldn't help but roar when he saw what happened to Night Sorrow. Everyone else was also worried about Night Sorrow. Even Yuan Fengshue's thoughts were pulled away from the myriad sword sect. Phoenix battle armor, absorb the flames for me. I can use this flame to refine you into a sovereign artifact. At this moment, Night Sorrow suddenly roared and used the Phoenix battle armor on his body to absorb the flames. The Phoenix battle armor's predecessor was the Azure Phoenix battle armor refined by Jing Yun. Now, it had been refined into the Divine King's Peak battle armor. At this moment, after absorbing the terrifying flames, the Phoenix battle armor started burning. Night Sorrow's pain from being burned by the flames immediately disappeared, and he also recovered from his paralyzed state. After recovering, Night Sorrow held the golden heavenly halberd and suddenly blasted the lightning reincarnation spear above his head. After this move, terrifying lightning exploded around the reincarnation heavenly halberd. Night Sorrow, who was holding the reincarnation heavenly halberd, raised it and directly pierced through the wild beast's foot. After that, Night Sorrow held the golden heavenly halberd and floated above the void. The wild beast let out an earth-shattering roar. If you don't have any other skills, you can only be slaughtered by me. After a few exchanges, Night Sorrow had already figured out the wild beast's strength. This wild beast basically didn't have any divine soul power, and basically relied on its tyrannical body to fight. In terms of body, Night Sorrow wasn't weaker than others at all. When fighting with it, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage at all. At this point in the battle, he could already confirm that although this wild beast was terrifying, it shouldn't be his opponent. Woo! Facing Night Sorrow, the wild beast was already an honorable and had the ability to speak human language. However, it didn't. Instead, it howled. Then, it opened its mouth and tried to swallow Night Sorrow. Not good. This attack looked very ordinary. But soon, Night Sorrow realized that something was wrong. This wild beast's attack was definitely not simple. It contained a very mysterious law. At the same time, he waved the golden heavenly halberd and attacked crazily, wanting to rely on his strength to escape. But this time, no matter how he attacked, he didn't achieve any effect. At this moment, Night Sorrow felt that even the heavens and earth could be swallowed. He couldn't escape at all. In the end, he couldn't resist and was swallowed by the wild beast. What kind of wild beast is this? Its previous attacks weren't considered strong for an honorable. But this time, it's even more terrifying than a crazy wolf king. In the process of being swallowed, Night Sorrow secretly thought in his heart. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 2975. There was no way to resist the beast's devouring. Night Sorrow had not experienced this feeling for a long time. In the process of being devoured, he thought of the people in the God realm in his space hollow. He felt that he should not give up no matter what. Brother Yi, what happened? In the process of Night Sorrow being devoured by the beast, Murong guides the way in his space hollow and asks puzzledly. He guessed that Night Sorrow had been devoured by the beast, but he did not dare to believe this fact, so he asked to confirm. Hearing this, Night Sorrow said helplessly, "We have been devoured by the beast, but we still need to observe what will happen. I will do my best to protect everyone. Being devoured into my chaos space, who are you still dreaming of protecting?" Yi Shang had just opened his mouth when a deep, deep voice rang out. "Beast?" Hearing this voice, Night Sorrow vigilantly used his godly soul to check the surroundings. But the surroundings were completely chaotic, so he could not sense anything. This king is the Chaos Supreme Beast King. You dare to enter the territory ruled by this king, prepare to die. After the beast that called itself the Chaos Supreme Beast King roared, it released its godly soul power and attacked Night Sorrow. It turned out that it could not only use its strength to attack. On the contrary, its godly soul power was very strong, but it did not use it in the battle just now. At this time, in the chaos space, after it was used, Night Sorrow immediately felt a strong pressure. His godly soul felt as if it was being torn into pieces, and the pain was unbearable. But he did not know where to start and how to resist the beast's attack. He could only try his best to use his godly soul to resist this terrifying attack. But Night Sorrow's resistance did not have any power under the Chaos Supreme Beast King's pressure. Not only was the Chaos Supreme Beast King's body huge, but its godly soul power was also unusually strong. To Night Sorrow, its godly soul was like a giant. Am I going to be killed by it just like this? No, I can't die. Behind me is the entire God realm. Night Sorrow knew that if he was killed by the beast in front of him, the realm of the gods would not be able to achieve a good result in this battle for providence. In that case, the divine world's territory and the divine world would definitely be attacked by other realms. That kind of situation was unimaginable. After pondering for a moment, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to the people in the space cave. Crush your identity plates and teleport everyone out. I'll stay and fight it. Don't worry, as long as I don't die, I will bring good results to the divine realm. With so many people from the divine world around, he couldn't do as he pleased. He was prepared to let them all leave so that he could give it his all. No. Night Sorrow. We will fight alongside you. Rather than leaving, we might as well die here with you. Because if you're not here, the God realm will cease to exist. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Xiao Tianxian immediately retorted. Neither he nor anyone else from the God world had any intention of leaving. To them, leaving meant giving up. It was no different from dying here. Yuan Fengxue also said, that's right. Brother Yi, although our strength isn't very strong, we can still be of help if we stay. Don't give up on us. Everyone should leave. That way, I can give it my all. Hearing everyone's words, Night Sorrow was naturally very moved. However, he didn't have the slightest confidence in facing the beast in front of him. He didn't want everyone to die here. No one needs to leave. I will solve the problem in front of us. At this moment, Wu Lingfei, who had been recuperating, suddenly opened her mouth and said, You will solve it? Lingfei, you can fight against the Supreme Chaos Beast King? After Wu Lingfei finished speaking, Yuan Fengxue immediately asked doubtfully. The others were also puzzled. They felt that if even Night Sorrow couldn't solve the problem, logically speaking, Wu Lingfei shouldn't be able to solve it. I don't have the ability to fight against the Supreme Chaos Beast King, but I can let Night Sorrow have the ability to fight against it. Wu Lingfei said and continued, I have a secret method that can help Night Sorrow increase the power of his divine soul in a short time. It should be no problem to use it to fight against the beast in front of us. Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up and do it. How do you need us to cooperate? Xiao Tianxian said anxiously. He was in Night Sorrow's space cave and could clearly feel how Night Sorrow's divine soul was being suppressed. Just wait. Wu Lingfei said and transmitted her voice to Night Sorrow, who was fighting against the Supreme Chaos Beast King. She said, Relax your divine soul. I will help you increase the power of your divine soul. How? Night Sorrow also asked doubtfully. He didn't know that Wu Lingfei had such a method. Divine Soul Dual Cultivation Technique. Wu Lingfei said and released her divine soul, intertwining it with Night Sorrow's divine soul. In an instant, Night Sorrow felt that his divine soul, which was being suppressed by the Supreme Chaos Beast King, became comfortable. It was like a suffocating person inhaling a breath of air. However, soon, Night Sorrow found that this divine soul dual cultivation technique was very mysterious. It was not as simple as just inhaling a breath of air. His and Wu Lingfei's divine souls were soon completely intertwined, and there was a feeling of harmony. That feeling was very pleasant. Although the heat was very short, it was more strange than the combination of physical bodies. At that moment, he even completely forgot about the suppression of the Supreme Chaos Beast King's divine soul. He was completely immersed in the aftertaste of Wu Lingfei. Don't worry about the Supreme Chaos Beast King. But soon, Wu Lingfei withdrew her divine soul with a red face and ended this short dual cultivation. After Wu Lingfei withdrew her divine soul, Night Sorrow was surprised to find that his divine soul had improved by a lot. In an instant, the Supreme Chaos Beast King was completely unable to suppress him. Break for me. Realizing that the Supreme Chaos Beast King's divine soul could not suppress him, Night Sorrow shouted and completely released the power of his divine soul, using it to launch a counterattack. Then, Night Sorrow found that his divine soul strength had increased, and in terms of divine soul strength, it had surpassed the Supreme Chaos Beast King. He chased after it and fought fiercely. Very soon, the Supreme Chaos Beast King was completely suppressed by Night Sorrow. Thank you, Lingfei. After suppressing the Supreme Chaos Beast King, Night Sorrow left and sent a message to Wu Lingfei. After the two of them went through a spiritual exchange, he was completely embarrassed to call her Aunt Fei or Sister Fei. Fortunately, he directly called her Lingfei. On the other hand, Wu Lingfei was very relieved and said calmly, "You're welcome. Protecting the God realm is not your responsibility alone." In fact, in her heart, there were already waves that could not be suppressed. In the past, Night Sorrow was just a junior in her heart, but after thousands of years of contact, her feelings for Night Sorrow were completely different. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 2976. In fact, Night Sorrow was already completely aware of Wu Lingfei's intentions. However, under such circumstances, Night Sorrow naturally had no time to talk about children. Soon. Just release us out of the chaos space. I want you to choose to submit. Be my battle pet. This primal chaos supreme beast king was very powerful, but after Night Sorrow suppressed its divine soul, he realized that it was a weakling. It was not as strong as it appeared on the surface. It was completely possible for it to submit. The biggest problem of the God Realm territory was that there were too few top-notch combatants. If he could make this primal chaos supreme beast king submit, it would definitely be a very ferocious combatant. Hearing Night Sorrow asking it to submit, the primal chaos supreme beast king was completely enraged in an instant. She was angry. However, Night Sorrow, who had just improved his divine soul power, had clearly surpassed the primal chaos supreme beast king. After suppressing the primal chaos supreme beast king again, Night Sorrow said coldly, "I am the virtuous dominator. I mean what I say. I'll give you a chance to submit. If you don't submit, I'll kill you directly and make you into a divine weapon." As soon as Night Sorrow finished speaking, the primal chaos supreme beast king spoke. "Speak. What are your conditions?" The other party's attitude changed so quickly that it surprised him. The primal chaos supreme beast king said. At this moment, he suddenly had a strange feeling that this behemoth in front of him was plotting against him. The primal chaos supreme beast king changed his words. "You're not waiting for me here, are you? Do you agree to my request or not? I promise you that if I have the ability, I'll help you break through to Earth Supreme. At the same time, I also have a request. In the process of following me, you must do everything according to my wishes." At present, the God Realm territory indeed needed such a strong helper. After saying that, the primal chaos heavenly crystal beast's body shrank infinitely until it shrank into Night Sorrow's palm. Then, Night Sorrow and the primal chaos heavenly crystal beast signed a heavenly Tao contract, forming a master-servant relationship. After signing the heavenly Tao contract, the primal chaos heavenly crystal beast sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow, "You should thank me and her. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have been able to get her under these circumstances. If it wasn't for her, you wouldn't have passed my test and would have been killed by me." Night Sorrow didn't want to tell anyone about his relationship with Wu Lingfei. "I've lived in this space for countless years. How could I not know about it? Then do you know where there are more ferocious beasts? I have a friend who told us that he encountered a large number of ferocious beasts and was being hunted down. We need to extend a helping hand to him." "Your friend lied to you. There weren't many dire beasts here at all. Other than me, there are no other powerful creatures here. What? Are you telling the truth? You're the only one with strong combat power here? My friend has the strength of a dominator. A dominator rank vicious beast is already very strong for him. Hearing this, the chaotic heavenly crystal beast continued to say with certainty, it's impossible for your friend to encounter a large number of ferocious beasts here. He must have lied to you. He had faith in the myriad sword sex character. The chaotic heavenly crystal beast said doubtfully. Then, it patted its head with its tentacle and said, that's right. I understand now. Your friend must have encountered the evil demon's sword and then had an illusion. That evil demon's sword is very evil. The evil demon's sword is an evil sword suppressed in this palace. Although it's a supreme artifact, it's very evil and has a powerful bewitching ability. Your friend must not be strong enough and was deceived by its illusion. The chaotic heavenly crystal beast explained. After the chaotic heavenly crystal beast finished speaking, Night Sorrow continued, hurry up and bring me to that evil demon sword. I want to save my friend. However, the chaotic heavenly crystal beast did not immediately bring Night Sorrow to the area where the evil demon sword was. Isn't it just a sword? Moreover, it's only at the supreme level. No matter how powerful it is, how powerful can it be? Knowing that Night Sorrow was in a hurry to save someone, the chaotic heavenly crystal beast still advised, it's not that I don't want to help you, but we really aren't a match for the evil demon sword. It has once absorbed the laws and essence of an Earth sovereign. Those who don't understand the laws and essence of an Earth sovereign can't fight against it at all. Clan M. Chapter 2977. Earth Supreme's Laws and Essence? I have them. Wait for me to absorb them. He landed on the ground, set up a formation, and began to absorb them. In addition, his cultivation had already advanced to the sovereign realm, and he had also consolidated it through continuous battles. In just 2 years, Night Sorrow completely absorbed the Earth Supreme's laws and essence that Feng Wuji had injected into his body. After absorbing the Earth Supreme's laws and essence, Night Sorrow immediately realized the difference between sovereigns and Earth sovereigns. A surface was equivalent to the sum of countless lines. Let's go. I've already absorbed some Earth Supreme's laws and essence. At this moment, the chaotic heavenly crystal beast looked at Night Sorrow with obvious envy in its eyes. If it had not chosen to submit to Night Sorrow, it would have already prepared to snatch it. The chaotic heavenly crystal beast instructed Night Sorrow and brought him to the place where the evil demon's sword was suppressed. Xiao Tianxian asked telepathically as they flew towards the evil demon's sword. Hearing this, Night Sorrow replied, it's fine. It has already signed a heavenly Tao law with me. As long as it doesn't want to die, it won't lie to me. Xiao Tianxian said worriedly. The myriad sword sect had been silent for more than 2 years. As long as there's a glimmer of hope, I'll save Brother Wan from danger. He hoped that Xiao Tianxian and the others would be in a better mood. Just as Night Sorrow was communicating with Xiao Tianxian, the chaotic heavenly crystal beast suddenly said. Speaking of the evil aura around it, it was a little unnatural, as if it had sensed something. After the chaotic heavenly crystal beast finished speaking, Night Sorrow released his divine spirit power towards the main hall and clearly detected the evil aura that the other party mentioned. Just as Night Sorrow was talking to the chaotic heavenly crystal beast. That's Brother Wan's voice. Brother Wan, it's indeed Brother Wan's voice. Being able to hear the myriad sword sect's voice so quickly made them all heave a sigh of relief. The next moment, when the myriad sword sect appeared, everyone in the divine world territory was surprised. However, his eyes were completely occupied by evil will-o'-the-wisps. In particular, it was a huge black sword in his hand. It was suffused with a vast cold light, making people feel very uncomfortable. Haha. I'm fine. Of course I'm fine. Moreover, it will be stronger than ever. He looked at Night Sorrow and said, you once defeated me. Today, I will kill you and avenge the humiliation of my defeat. Night Sorrow coldly shouted when he saw the myriad sword sect in such a state. He wasn't really himself. The will-o'-the-wisp and Master Myriad Sword's eyes danced evilly as he spoke. Then, he swung the great sword above his head at Night Sorrow. As the 10,000 sword sect attacked, Night Sorrow immediately asked the Chaos Heavenly Crystal Beast about it while dodging their attacks. The chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow before it continued, "I haven't absorbed any earthly sovereign rules or essence, so I'm still in danger of being controlled by the evil demon sword. Why don't you put me into the space cave to hide?" Night Sorrow responded and put the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast into the grotto heaven. The current myriad sword sect, whether it was his eyes or the aura on his body, had undergone a huge change. Then, he threw the great sword in his hand into the air and turned it into a half-moon scimitar. It spun and slashed at Night Sorrow. The current myriad sword sect's aura had become many times stronger than before. However, it collided with him. Even the golden heavenly halberd in his hand almost fell out of his hand. Night Sorrow, who had climbed up from the void, looked at the current myriad sword sect and asked, "Are you Brother Juan or the evil demon sword?" The myriad sword sect, who was holding the evil demon sword, roared and charged at Night Sorrow again. Facing the incoming myriad sword sect, Night Sorrow couldn't help but sigh. Clan. Chapter 2978. If you want to save him, you have to defeat him first. He explained, "When I say defeat, I mean suppress or seal him, and then find a way to save him." Night Sorrow responded and no longer paid attention to the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast, locking his gaze on Myriad Sword Sect. Moreover, it was mainly based on the evil demon sword's consciousness, and its killing intent was extremely heavy. Evil demon sword drawl. The evil demon sword drew a semicircle in the void and slashed at Night Sorrow. Facing this move, Night Sorrow, who was observing with the sea serpent's eye, suddenly felt that all the moves he had mastered before were not suitable. Although this move was something that Night Sorrow came up with on the spot, its power was not small at all. This was because this was a spear technique that was researched based on the supreme rules. Your strength has improved very quickly, but it's impossible for you to defeat me. This time, he continued to attack and did not perform any unique skill. A spear and a sword clashed in close combat, intertwining with each other, emitting countless rays of light and deafening sounds. Now that they were fighting like this, neither side was able to extricate themselves from the fight. "It seems that you're not that terrifying. Evil demon sword. I believe that my brother will soon be able to completely suppress you." In the process of persevering, he mocked the evil demon sword, hoping to use this method to awaken the kindness in Myriad Sword Sect's heart. The evil demon sword's voice came over sinisterly. Facing this kind of attack that wanted to fight with his life, Night Sorrow struggled to resist. After thinking for a moment, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast, "Come out and fight with me." Although he has fused with the supreme rules and essence, as a supreme, you obviously have the ability to assist me in battle. Don't hide in the space to watch the show. If I'm killed, you definitely won't survive. No matter how useless it was, it could still be of some use. This, all right. Together with Night Sorrow, they fought against Myriad Sword Sect controlled by the evil demon sword. As soon as the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast attacked, it controlled Myriad Sword Sect's evil demon sword and scolded coldly. Although the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast's body was huge, its attacks were not stupid at all. However, the evil fiend's sword was too sharp. During the battle, the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast was slashed several times. After suffering continuous attacks, the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast was in so much pain that it screamed again and again. "What are you yelling for? If he could focus on dealing with you, I would definitely take him down." Night Sorrow replied snappily. "A thing as cowardly as a mouse dares to make a move against me. I want your life. Let the Myriad Sword Sect's body fight against the chaotic Heavenly Crystal Beast." However, it still did not exert its full strength. It only ensured that it was not injured and did not attack with all its might. You're underestimating me too much if you think you can fight me with just your sword. You're underestimating me. Now, let me show you what a real evil demon's sword is. Now that the evil demon's sword had escaped the myriad sword sect's control, it had become even more vicious. No matter how terrifying a sword is, it's only a divine artifact. You're just an artifact spirit. Do you think you can overturn the heavens? He immediately condensed the power of virtue in his body. After fighting for a while, with the help of the power of virtue, Night Sorrow quickly suppressed the evil demon's sword. The evil demon's sword, which relied on murderous aura and baleful aura to produce attacks, was perfectly restrained. Realizing that Night Sorrow could control the power of virtue, the evil demon's sword's artifact spirit was immediately terrified. Therefore, it realized that something was wrong when Night Sorrow used the power of virtue. Clan M. Chapter 2979. After merging with Myriad Sword Sect's body, the evil demon's sword immediately turned into a giant red sword with a black light. Evil Demon's Sword. This was a power that it had not activated in the battle just now. In the space grotto heaven, Wu Lingfei immediately shouted worriedly when she saw the evil demon's sword use such a move. This move of the evil demon's sword had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. Even in the space grotto heaven, they could feel the power of this attack. Facing the fiendish sword, Night Sorrow responded to the crowd and cast a virtuous trapping array on the huge red sword. He then roared at the chaotic heavenly crystal beast, immediately used the chaos space and suck us all in. I want to fight it in your chaos space. Dealing with the evil demon's sword in my chaos space, at this moment, Night Sorrow threatened, if you don't do as I say, you'll be violating the oath of the heavenly Tao and will be killed by the heavenly Tao. The chaotic heavenly crystal beast muttered and cooperated with Night Sorrow. The moment the giant red sword was frozen, they used the chaos space. Chaotic heavenly crystal beast, try to stabilize the chaos space. I'll deal with it myself. In the chaos space, he could only use his soul to attack. He was prepared to use his powerful soul to destroy the evil demon sword's artifact spirit. Whether or not I'm courting death, we'll only know after we fight. Then, they began a soul duel in the chaos space controlled by the chaotic heavenly crystal beast. The evil demon sword's artifact spirit was stronger than Night Sorrow's in terms of soul, but it needed to split a large part of it to suppress Myriad Sword Sect's soul. Under such circumstances, the evil demon sword's artifact spirit was still evenly matched with Night Sorrow, forming a stalemate. All right. Let's join forces and completely suppress it. After it evolved into a 1 versus 3 battle, the evil demon sword's artifact spirit could not hold on any longer. In the end, it was completely killed by Night Sorrow and the chaotic heavenly crystal beast. The evil demon sword also became an ownerless artifact without an artifact spirit. At this moment, Night Sorrow sent a voice transmission to the chaotic heavenly crystal beast, asking it to release him and Myriad Sword Sect from the chaos space. Oh. Why doesn't it make sense? There's no basis. I just feel that the evil demon sword is not that easy to deal with. There shouldn't be any problems. I've already obtained its earthly sovereign rules and essence. What? Are you willing to give these things to me? These are the spoils of war that you have obtained through the battle. In the future, we will distribute the spoils fairly in every battle. At this point, the people of the God world had also come out to help. Under such circumstances, Night Sorrow said, Brother Wan's soul was heavily injured and he didn't wake up. I had no choice but to put him into the space grotto heaven. We need to continue fighting to get more points. Now that we have the help of the chaotic heavenly crystal beast, our strength is enough to compete for first place in this small world. As for the other sovereigns, they had no resistance against him and the chaotic heavenly crystal beast. Xiao Tianxian sighed. The current Myriad Sword Sect was practically a living corpse. Chaotic heavenly crystal beast, can you change your appearance? I want you to disguise yourself as Brother Wan and fight alongside us. Transform into that person's appearance? I can give it a try. Moreover, in terms of appearance, the transformation was extremely similar. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 2980. Try fighting and see if you can imitate some of Brother Juan's moves. I'll try my best. I might not succeed. After the battle began, Knight Sorrow shook his head and said, "Your imitation is a complete imitation. You didn't imitate the essence. You didn't show the sword intent that he controlled. Anyone with a discerning eye will be exposed. However, that's it for now. After all, it's impossible for you to comprehend sword intent in a short time." The chaotic heavenly crystal beast said matter-of-factly. "Okay. That's not a problem." The chaotic heavenly crystal beast agreed and continued, "Can you let me cultivate in peace for a while? I want to absorb the Earth Supreme's rules and essence." Knight Sorrow told the chaotic heavenly crystal beast and let it absorb the Earth Supreme's rules and essence on the spot. These rules and essence were temporarily useless to the Myriad Sword sect, so he didn't leave them for the other party. He still needed to wait a year for the chaotic heavenly crystal beast. When he had nothing to do, he studied the combination of the Earth Supreme's rules and essence with his own attributes. He named it the Void Transition Technique, and this movement technique was 3 to 4 times faster than the Void Dragon movement technique. This movement technique has greatly improved me. It's a pity that I don't have time to study the spear technique anymore. I'm not sure if I can defeat the Supreme Wolf King. The crazy Supreme Wolf King's strength was absolutely terrifying. It had absorbed the Earth Supreme's essence twice, and its cultivation was almost at the peak of a lower-level juggernaut. I'm done with my cultivation. I've finished absorbing the Earth Supreme's rules and essence. What surprised Knight Sorrow was that it had also finished absorbing the Earth Supreme's rules and essence. Knight Sorrow said and then explained to the chaotic heavenly crystal beast the situation of the God Realm's territory and the battle for providence. The chaotic heavenly crystal beast looked at Knight Sorrow and asked word by word. Knight Sorrow said and ignored the chaotic heavenly crystal beast. He transmitted his voice to Shao Tianxian and the others, saying, "Brother Shao, the Supreme Wolf King has gone crazy in the small world. It's very dangerous. You guys rest in my space grotto heaven for the time being and take care of Brother Juan. Leave the battle to me." Shao Tianxian said in a sincere and earnest tone. It was the same for everyone else in the firmament. "No matter what, you'll be the one leading us in this battle of providence. Let's strive to contribute more next time." In fact, at this juncture of the battle for providence, it had completely exceeded the strength they could resist. Everyone here has contributed in the past, and played a crucial role. If it weren't for everyone, we would have been killed on the Scarlet Celestial Body, and we wouldn't have achieved what we have now. Together with the primal chaos heavenly crystal beast, Shaochen searched for a way out of the underground palace. With the primal chaos heavenly crystal beast's help, he spent more than a year to successfully leave the underground palace, which contained many formations. As far as his eyes could see, everything had become a wasteland. After activating the sea serpent dragon's eye to observe, Knight Sorrow determined the situation before him. While Knight Sorrow was searching for the Supreme Wolf King, it actually reappeared. I wonder how they managed to hide. It just so happened to avoid the raging Supreme Wolf King. But now that this matter has become a fact, we can't stop it. There were still 44 people left. In the firmament, apart from Knight Sorrow and the chaotic heavenly crystal beast, who was disguised as the Myriad Sword sect, no one else had appeared. In his opinion, as long as the Tao world's territory avoided the Supreme Wolf King's pursuit, they could successfully obtain first place. Thus, he felt much more relaxed. Supremacy Yuling knew that Feng Wuji's wishes could not be violated. Thus, she looked coldly at Knight Sorrow in the image. Clan M. Chapter 2981. Supreme Yuling is a person of noble character and unquestionable integrity, a person who understands the greater good. We are all in awe. No one can grow in the divine world territory. Otherwise, everyone will be threatened. Supreme Yuling helped everyone solve the hidden dangers. This kind of fearless spirit is worthy of all of us to learn. Some of the Supremes from other territories also began to compliment him. He thought to himself, hypocrite. I was also forced by Feng Wuji. Otherwise, who would be willing to wade in muddy waters? However, right at this moment, a Supreme suddenly walked in front of Supreme Yuling and said, Supreme Whitebone is back. He sent me a voice transmission and will be here soon. Supreme Yuling's brows immediately relaxed a lot and said, Everyone, follow me to personally welcome Supreme Whitebone. He's our great hero. The Supreme's present had nothing to do with whether Supreme Whitebone returned or not. Then, everyone went to welcome Supreme Whitebone under Supreme Yuling's lead. Regarding this, the Whitebone sovereign sighed bitterly. Come, brother Whitebone, let's watch that little bastard fight together. His strength must have improved greatly over the years. You mustn't underestimate him. At this moment, Night Sorrow was leading the Chaos Heavenly Crystal Beast, who had transformed into Myriad Sword sex appearance, to search for Supreme Wolf King in the small world. However, Night Sorrow discovered the people from the Chaos territory. Night Sorrow, who used the Sea Serpent's Eye to discover the people from the Chaos territory, did not attack them. He directly flew over the volcano where they were hiding. Leader, 3131. The ones passing by outside are Night Sorrow and Myriad Sword sect from the Divine World territory. There are only 2 of them. Should we make a move? The 2 of them dare to roam freely outside with the Supreme Wolf King running amok. They definitely won't be easy to deal with. We'd better hide in peace and wait for 100 years to come. We'll naturally obtain a good ranking because of the Supreme Wolf King's existence. However, right at this moment, he received a cold voice transmission. It was Supreme Yuling. Although Supreme Whitebone had already returned, he cheated again. Qi Xinghai, who heard this voice, was first stunned before asking in confusion. Supreme Yuling informed Qi Xinghai of the 3 territory points. Good. Very good. When you come out, I have a reward. He was prepared to end the battle in this small world as soon as possible. After Qi Xinghai ended his conversation with Yuling, he immediately ordered, currently, there are 3 territories left in the pocket dimension. As long as we eliminate the Divine World territory, we will be second place. It was second only to the Tao World's territory. Everyone, let's kill our way out. Hearing Qi Xinghai's words, everyone in the Chaos territory was overjoyed. Qi Xinghai replied and took the lead to stand up. With a golden trident in hand, he charged out of the volcano. The others in the Chaos territory also charged out. Entering the top 32, that was the first echelon. Kill. He immediately noticed the people from the Primal Chaos territory rushing over. It's me. Are you from the Primal Chaos territory? I am the leader of the Primal Chaos territory, Qi Xinghai. Currently, there are 17 people left in my Primal Chaos territory. There are only 2 of you left in the Celestial Realm. You're no match for us. Crush your own nameplates. Without waiting for Night Sorrow to respond, he continued, you are ranked 3rd in this small world. This result is already the highest in countless years. You should be satisfied. Night Sorrow, who was suspended in the void, used the Sea Serpent's Eye to size up the people in the Chaos territory. Then, he continued, if the Chaos territory hid peacefully in the volcano just now, you could have easily obtained second place. Because I would have kicked the Tao World territory out. A disdainful smile appeared on Qi Xinghai's face. Then, he ordered, attack. There's no need to say anything to people like him. After Qi Xinghai gave the order, he led the people in the Chaos territory to attack. Night Sorrow, who originally did not want to deal with them, sneered and launched a counterattack. Clan. Chapter 2982. Shameless boasting. Just the two of you, and you want to call yourselves kings in front of the Chaos Territory? At the same time, the rest of the Chaos Territory attacked together with him. And they were all elites. With Xiao Tianxuan's strength, he could only be ranked below average. When these people attacked together, they immediately turned into a dozen streams of light in the void, looking like meteors. He snorted coldly and said, "I don't need two people to deal with you. I alone am enough. I, Qi Xinghai, have never seen such an arrogant piece of trash like you. I won't give you the chance to crush your nameplate." He felt like he had been greatly humiliated. The rest of the Chaos Territory also burst out in laughter. "It's you guys. So weak that you can't see through others' attacks." Knight Sorrow's voice came from behind them. It was just that his movement technique was too strong, leaving behind an afterimage in the void that they couldn't see through. Knight Sorrow, who had already reached the back of the Chaos Territory's people, suddenly fired a shot before they could finish their attack. In comparison, Knight Sorrow's attack was like the sun exploding in the void. Other than Qi Xinghai, who staggered to his feet, the rest of the Chaos Territory who were hit by the attack lost their ability to fight. Now you know who overestimated themselves. Crush your nameplate. He knew that this attack was enough. You, because Knight Sorrow had shocked him too much. With such strength, he could definitely be ranked in the top 20 in this battle for Providence. No one is an eternal king. But if you never have the heart to challenge, you don't have the right to become a strong person. Alright, our Chaos Territory asked for it. Everyone, let's go. Now that the battle has reached this point, we can leave. Before he crushed his nameplate, he suddenly sent a voice transmission to Knight Sorrow, "Be careful of Supreme Yuling. If not for her, I wouldn't have attacked just now. I'm saying this to repay you for sparing my life." The difference in strength between the two sides was just too great. Knight Sorrow heard Qi Xinghai's words and immediately asked in confusion. "It seems that Paragon Yuling has been the one sending people to deal with our territories. He should be able to see all of our actions from outside. No wonder our concealment formation is useless." He sent a voice transmission to the chaotic heavenly crystal beast, asking, "Will there be an image stone in that palace?" The chaotic heavenly crystal beast replied without hesitation. "They definitely don't deserve it with just these people. But it's absolutely impossible for you to go against the entire Chaos Territory." Good. This king is going to rest. Then, Knight Sorrow sped up to search for the Supreme Wolf King and the people in the Dao World's territory. Dao Wui, who was in the Dao World's territory, could not help but swallow his saliva. Although Knight Sorrow had just made a simple attack, it was still a huge blow. Knight Sorrow's rate of improvement terrified him. "I don't need you to tell me that. I have already ordered everyone in the Dao world to attack him. If this drags on any longer, the consequences will be unimaginable. Tell them Knight Sorrow's location and the strength he displayed." What? Knight Sorrow has actually become so strong? When Knight Sorrow had said on the square that he would definitely have a battle with Fairy Yu Yan, he had thought that Knight Sorrow was arrogant and did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Clan M. Chapter 2983. He might be more powerful than we imagined. Everyone in the Chaos Territory was killed by him in one move. Based on Supreme Yuling's words, he could deduce that Knight Sorrow was not inferior to him. As for what his upper limit was, he could not deduce it at all. If Dao Tianming and the others were all killed by Knight Sorrow, he would not be able to do anything even if he advanced to the final battle for the championship. Dao Tianming was terrified when he heard Dao Jun's words. After the battle, he would definitely be taken care of. After Dao Tianming finished speaking, Dao Jun's eyes lit up. Good. The fact that you have this idea proves that you're a meticulous leader. I'm optimistic about your future development. However, you don't have to go out and lure the Supreme Wolf King out. You just have to wait. Knight Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King will encounter each other very soon. Yes. Lord Yuling. Because they wanted to make a difference in the final battle for the championship, the Dao World Territory paid attention to the issue of manpower consumption. After communicating with Supreme Yuling, Dao Jun ordered, everyone, refine at least 3 divine talismans. As long as we attack, we won't leave him any leeway. The Dao World Territory was prepared to fight Night Sorrow like a paragon. At the moment, the Supreme Wolf King was completely crazy and its strength was still at the upper paragon level. The Supreme Wolf King's attacks were no longer like before with absolute arts or other things. They were all unstructured attacks. Night Sorrow, who was facing it, was aware that someone was paying attention to him and had been holding back. Why is the Supreme Wolf King more powerful than the 31? Is he much stronger than the small world's paragon? Could this be heaven's will? I'm not sure why this happened, but it's good that this is the case. The Supreme Wolf King will most likely be of great help to us. The strength Night Sorrow displayed now was not inferior to the strength he had displayed during the battle with the Chaos Territory's people. Then, under Night Sorrow's control, the battle looked even more tragic. In the end, he was completely fighting with the Supreme Wolf King. He had obtained the reward of guarding this small world, but he looked like he was at his last breath. At the sight of this, Supreme Yuling snickered coldly. She then sent a voice transmission to Dao Jun, Night Sorrow is already severely injured. You guys attack immediately. Dao Jun replied to Yuling and ordered, Night Sorrow is severely injured. Follow me and kill our way out. After everyone in the Dao world responded, they followed Dao Jun and rushed toward where Night Sorrow was. After meeting Night Sorrow, Dao Jun sneered. Night Sorrow looked at the people in the Dao world's territory and said coldly. Dao Jun said as he took out 3 supreme artifact. Relying on the control of his divine sense, he attacked Night Sorrow. Dao Tianming and the others immediately threw divine talismans and divine weapons at Night Sorrow. One person actually has 3 supreme artifacts. The people in the top 30 are indeed not to be underestimated. Using the void transition skill, he easily dodged the attacks, causing them to land in the boundless void. After these 3 supreme artifacts attacked, they immediately locked onto his aura and chased after him ferociously. When everyone in the spatial grotto heaven saw Night Sorrow face so many people in the Dao world's territory alone, they all felt worried for Night Sorrow. As for the chaotic heavenly crystal beast, it was ready to attack. Although it was not very bold, it did not want Night Sorrow to die so quickly. Everyone, don't worry. I have the ability to fight with the Dao world's territory and lead everyone to the top 10. However, Night Sorrow could naturally guess their thoughts. After comforting them, he completely rushed into the group of Dao world's territory's sovereigns. Clan M. Chapter 2984. Brothers, Night Sorrow is not injured at all. This means that his strength completely surpasses the Supreme Wolf King's. He's stronger than we thought. Everyone, be extremely careful. Dao Jun immediately reminded them and controlled the 3 supreme divine weapons to resist Night Sorrow's attack. Although there were many rulers in the Dao world, when Night Sorrow executed the void transition technique, no one could attack him except for Dao Jun and Dao Tianming. While resisting Dao Jun and Dao Tianming, Night Sorrow did not attack the other rulers. Very soon, he killed more than 10 cultivators directly. When they saw their subordinates being killed by Night Sorrow one by one, they did not even have the chance to crush their identity nameplates. Facing Night Sorrow, he executed his strongest mystic technique. This move was executed by using the 3 supreme divine weapons and a secret treasure on him. On the ground of this world was a huge 8 trigrams diagram. The void was filled with yellow talismans that were originally floating aimlessly. For a moment, Night Sorrow was restrained by countless talismans and could barely resist these attacks. When he saw Night Sorrow being defeated by him, in the Dao world, Dao Jun's face immediately revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. Leader, we'll do our best to kill him and not give him a chance to make a comeback. After Dao Tianming made a move, the other people in the Dao world also executed this kind of ultimate skill and mystic technique and attacked Night Sorrow ferociously. This time, not only were the people in the Tao world attacking, but he was also suppressed and attacked by the Tao world's heaven and earth. Night Sorrow, what should we do? Do you need our help? Murong Junlu also said, Brother Yi, let us out. We can be of some use. At that moment, Night Sorrow said in a low voice, everyone is making a fearless sacrifice by coming out rashly. I can handle it myself. Since Night Sorrow did not let everyone out, Xiao Tianxian continued. The chaotic heavenly crystal beast is one of our trump cards in the championship battle. Now is not the time for it to appear. Everyone, don't worry. Although I'm in a sorry state, their formation shouldn't last for long. I will persevere. At that moment, he was in the Tao world's heaven and earth and basically did not have the ability to break the array. He had been passively taking a beating. This was also an important reason why Night Sorrow had not let the chaotic heavenly crystal beast come out to fight. He wanted to use his own ability to persist until the Tao world's heaven and earth collapsed. Dao Jun, who was controlling the formation, had exhausted a lot of his divine energy. He could not attack at all, so he shouted anxiously. Leader. We are already attacking with all our might. If this kind of attack can't kill it, there's nothing we can do. After Night Sorrow had been trapped, she and the cultivators of the other Tao world territories had launched their most ferocious attacks. At this point in the battle, their confidence had suffered a great blow. They felt that Night Sorrow was like an invincible sovereign. Bastard. He's already trapped. What are you afraid of? Give it your all. Give it your all. Ignite his bloodline. If I can't burn my bloodline, then I'll burn my life force. I must kill him quickly. However, even if Dao Jun was anxious, they could not unleash a more powerful attack. At that moment, Supreme Yuling and the others who were watching looked at each other. Don't worry. I'll do my best to kill him. It's completely impossible for the divine world territories to rise. Although Yi Shang had displayed great strength in the image and had the strength of a supreme being, Yi Shang was still very strong. Therefore, his strength was much stronger than the supreme wolf kings. Clan M. Chapter 2985. Supremacy White Bone, don't worry. If you attack Night Sorrow and encounter any accidents, we'll take care of the Bone Realm. Dao Jun, it looks like your world won't last for long. Although he was battered and exhausted from the bombardment, he was still not in danger. Although his attack still could not shake the Tao world's heaven and earth, the surrounding talismans were getting weaker and weaker. Upon realizing that Night Sorrow was about to break out of the realm, Dao Jun's face was full of unwillingness. Enter and perish together? Do you mean to send people into the Tao world and self-destruct? The self-destruction of a ruler was indeed not much of a threat to Night Sorrow, but it was completely different if 20 to 30 rulers self-destructed. Yes, leader. That's what Tianming means. He's willing to take the lead. The Tao world's territory cannot be in the hands of Night Sorrow. Good. Deputy leader Tianming is willing to sacrifice himself to achieve the Tao world's territory. This kind of boldness is worth learning from. Who else is willing to sacrifice themselves? Leader. Dao Tianxia is willing. Instigated by these people, all the cultivators in the Tao world's territory expressed their willingness to sacrifice themselves. At that moment, the Tao world's heaven and earth was already very unstable and could not last long. Dao Jun instigated all the rulers present and immediately ordered them to launch a suicidal attack. After Dao Jun gave the order, the remaining 20-odd cultivators in the Tao world's territory immediately poured into the Tao world's heaven and earth. Upon seeing so many cultivators pouring into the Tao world's territory, Night Sorrow immediately had an ominous premonition. After one of the cultivators finished speaking, he roared, "Everyone, attack! Don't give him any chance." Xiao Tianxian, who was in the spatial grotto heaven, immediately realized what was about to happen when he saw the people in the Tao world's territory behave like that. At that moment, Night Sorrow naturally saw what the people in the Tao world's territory were preparing to do. He could only raise his strength to the strongest state and prepare for defense. Before Night Sorrow was completely prepared, the cultivators in the Tao world's territory started to self-destruct. They were too close, so Night Sorrow could not avoid them at all. He could only choose to take them head-on. There were green mountains and clear waters. This group of brats from the Tao world is really ruthless. The decisiveness of the Tao world's ruler surprised even an eternal supreme realm expert like him. Tao Wui, who saw the scene before him, sighed with a gloomy expression. He felt that this kind of sacrifice was too inappropriate. We've already sacrificed ourselves. Let's hope we can kill him. Tao Wui said unhappily. What appeared were two figures. It was Dao Jun and Dao Tianming. It hadn't been affected by the self-detonation of the sovereigns. Dao Jun, who had suffered a serious backlash from the array formation, looked at the Tao world's heaven and earth. There's no longer any trace of his aura in the void. He's probably dead. I didn't expect that we would have to sacrifice so many people to kill him. It's good that he's dead. We still defended the honor of the Tao world's territory, but we paid a bigger price. After Supreme Yuling's reminder, he felt that Night Sorrow was like a mountain pressing down on him. Something's not right. Logically speaking, if we killed Night Sorrow, we would get first place in our group and be teleported out of the pocket dimension. Could someone in the Divine World's territory be hiding in other areas? Let me ask. Chapter 2986. I don't know what's going on either. In the entire small world, there is indeed no one else besides you. Logically speaking, since the Tao world has already taken the top spot in this small world, you should have been teleported out immediately. After carefully checking every area, he did not find anyone from the Divine World or cultivators from other territories. After replying to Dao Jun, he shared his doubts with the others. I've thought of that as well, but that sealed place is too far away from the place where they fought. How did he manage to enter the sealed area directly from the place where the battle took place? It was not that he had not thought about it like Dao Wui, but after considering the details, he felt that it did not make sense. Everyone discussed for a while and made a few speculations. Yes. Lord Yuling. At that moment, Night Sorrow was indeed in the underground palace. This was the chaotic heavenly crystal beast's life-saving mystic technique, which he had not wanted to expose. Now that the people from the Tao world have basically self-destructed, we should be in the bag for the first place in this group. Yes, our Divine World territory used to lack resources, but what we lack now is time. We can cultivate here for a few decades before going out. Then, Night Sorrow released everyone from the Divine World territory. At that moment, Wu Lingfei said, if Dao Jun and the others find someone and we are forced to kill them, we might be teleported out of this small world. Why don't we set up a concealment Dharma array to avoid the possibility of encountering them? After saying that, Night Sorrow started setting up a concealment Dharma array. Now, Dao Jun and the others had become pawns to delay this battle. They did not want to kill them so quickly. Before long, Dao Jun led Dao Tianming and appeared in the underground palace. That's strange. There's no one on the ground or in the underground palace. Could there be someone hiding somewhere we can't see? I'm not sure if Night Sorrow has been killed. Things had developed to this point, which was somewhat beyond his imagination. With the sealing of the evil demon land as a precedent, he could no longer determine if Night Sorrow and the others from the Divine World territory were still alive. What should we do? If only Night Sorrow is hiding, we can let Dao Jun and Dao Tianming come out. Let the White Bones Sovereign kill him. However, if there are other territories hidden in the small world, the sacrifice of the Tao world's territory would be a loss. This matter had already developed to a confusing state, and he was unable to make a good judgment. After discussing for a while, they decided that it would be better for Dao Jun and Dao Tianming to continue searching in the small world. In the small world in front of them, they could no longer see the battle. Only then did the Supremes focus their attention on the battles in the other 31 small worlds. As for the Jiao Xian estate, the Tian Shao estate, the Immortal Extinction estate, and the Life Extension estate, the 4 Great Saint lands, they had all emerged as the first place in the group. Fairy Yuan and the other super experts did not make a move personally. From the beginning to the end, they only played the role of holding the line. Dao Jun and Dao Tianming still couldn't find anyone in the small world. Taking everything into account, there were less than 5 small worlds left where the battle had not ended. All right. Dao Jun will follow Lord Yuling's orders. After receiving Yuling's message, the two of them crushed their identity badges and left the small world. However, after Dao Jun and Dao Tianming left the small world, the 16th small world did not send anyone out. At the moment, there were at least people from 2 territories in the small world. This result made Dao Jun and Dao Tianming completely dumbfounded. At the same time, they were also guessing who else was in the 16th small world. Clan M. Chapter 2987. However, even Supreme Yuling and Dao Wui couldn't figure it out. How could they deduce the result? Thus, Dao Jun sent a voice transmission to Dao Wui and asked, Lord Wui, who else is in the small world? Are there people from the 2 territories or more? Dao Wui said angrily before adding, this time, the Dao world's territory could be said to have set the most humiliating record in recent years. Moreover, only you and Dao Tianming survived. Both of you, prepare to be punished. Dao Jun explained word by word. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been ranked 3rd and allowed a hidden territory to succeed. Dao Wui said disdainfully. Then, he ignored Dao Jun and started to discuss countermeasures with Supreme Yuling. On the other side, there were other people restraining them. After spending the 98th year in the small world, Knight Sorrow successfully advanced to the middle-level sovereign realm. At the moment, the other people in the Divine World territory didn't change in their realms. However, after decades of cultivation, they had basically reached the peak of their realms. During the battle back then, she hadn't been able to help Knight Sorrow and hadn't been satisfied with her strength. Thus, she had been absorbing resources to cultivate. Everyone in the Divine World territory was doing well. Knight Sorrow immediately asked about the Myriad Sword Sex situation. He still hasn't woken up, but his body has recovered. It looks like his soul was severely injured. I'm not sure how to treat it. Xiao Tianxian sighed. Let me see. He's been like this for the past few decades. Brother Wan can still be saved. As long as we break the thing binding his spirit sea, he'll wake up and recover his combat strength. At the moment, he was a living dead. Instead, it was because his deity ocean had been sealed by someone, and the power of his deity soul was completely bound within it. He was unable to use it at all. Upon hearing Knight Sorrow's words, Yuan Fengxue heaved a sigh of relief. I'll try and see if I can get rid of the thing binding his spirit sea. He attacked the strange energy binding the Myriad Sword Sex Spirit Sea. It's the Earth's supremacy energy binding Brother Wan's Spirit Sea. It's very strong and solid. I can't get rid of it. We need a stronger cultivator to do it. Or we can rely on some secret techniques to save him. Upon hearing Knight Sorrow's words, everyone in the Divine World territory fell silent. I have a way to bring him here. Do you have a way? Tell me, what should I do? Doing so requires taking a risk. I wonder if you are willing to bear the consequences? Tell me, what exactly do you need to do? Knight Sorrow did not answer the chaotic heavenly crystal beast's question directly. The chaotic heavenly crystal beast continued, my condition for helping you is that you give me the earthly sovereign energy. Think about it. It was impossible for Knight Sorrow not to desire earthly sovereign energy. However, compared to saving the Myriad Sword Sect, he felt that it was nothing. Good. Then let's begin immediately. The earthly sovereign energy that bound his spirit sea was not inferior to the energy contained in the evil demon sword. Anything could happen. If something happens to your friend, don't blame me. I don't blame you. After getting the answer it wanted, the chaotic heavenly crystal beast immediately unleashed the chaotic space and sucked the myriad sword sect and night sorrow into it at the same time. Good. I will do my best. Chapter 2988. After Night Sorrow and the chaotic heavenly crystal beast launched their attack, the myriad sword master's body immediately shook. What surprised Night Sorrow and the chaotic heavenly crystal beast was that this earthly sovereign energy clearly had its own consciousness. He asked doubtfully, "Did you feel it?" This earthly sovereign energy seems to have its own consciousness. The chaotic heavenly crystal beast responded as it felt the resentment of the energy. Yishang said as he continued to use the power of his soul to attack the energy. Suddenly, he transmitted his voice, "You are delusional to think that you can seize my body. You're courting death. Today, I'll make both of your souls scatter." This earthly sovereign energy was actually threatening Yishang, and he immediately responded angrily. The earthly sovereign's divine spirit said disdainfully. Hearing this, Night Sorrow sneered and said, "Then let's see if a remnant soul like you can withstand our attack." Compared to his peak, the difference in strength was tens of thousands of times. When Night Sorrow and the chaotic heavenly crystal beast launched an even fiercer attack, the earthly sovereign's remnant soul immediately attacked them crazily. It unleashed all its remaining strength. When the earthly sovereign's remnant soul launched a crazy counterattack, Night Sorrow immediately reminded the chaotic heavenly crystal beast. "What? Both of you ants have mastered a certain amount of earthly sovereign laws? How is that possible?" He didn't expect that the sovereign Night Sorrow and the sovereign chaotic heavenly crystal beast would both master a certain amount of earthly sovereign laws. "You'll suffer the most terrifying backlash for plotting against my friend's body. Die." It was no match for Night Sorrow and the chaotic heavenly crystal beast at all. Not long after, the earthly sovereign's remnant soul was almost shattered. "Okay. We'll spare you this time." To it, breaking through to the earthly sovereign level was its only goal. When it heard the earthly sovereign's remnant soul say so, it was immediately moved. Night Sorrow immediately berated, "Don't listen to him. He's just a remnant soul that can't be any more damaged. How much can he know? Destroy him. Leave my friend's body before you say that." He felt that if he relented now, the other party would immediately take over Master Wan Jian's body. This way, he could ensure that Master Wan Jian would not be harmed in any way. It was the best choice. In the history of the Eternal Supreme World, the first person to become an Earth Supreme was the Supreme Longevity. And judging from the actions of the remnant soul in front of him, he felt that it was impossible for it to be the Supreme Longevity. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, the earthly sovereign's remnant soul responded and obediently left the myriad sword sect's body, floating in the air as a soul. After the earthly sovereign's remnant soul left Master Wan Jianzong's body, Night Sorrow immediately put Master Wan Jianzong's body into the spatial hollow and asked him about it. As for what the other party could say, he didn't really care. The remnant soul said its name. Night Sorrow was unfamiliar with the name Evil Sword Earthly Sovereign. "Many people have never heard of my name. However, I'm sure you've heard of Supreme Longevity, right?" "Supreme Longevity? Have you heard of Supreme Longevity?" Of course, he had heard of this name, and he was in awe of it. Evil Sword Earthly Sovereign continued, "At that time, I was just a ray of heaven and earth sword aura in the supreme space. I happened to meet Supreme Longevity's godly soul, who was about to dissipate, and I learned the secret of becoming an earthly sovereign from him. Then, I went to the place that he mentioned to cultivate, and there, I successfully became an earthly sovereign. However, after I became an earthly sovereign, I had just killed 2 of his enemies when I was surrounded and killed by many other earthly sovereigns who had just become earthly sovereigns." Night Sorrow asked, puzzled. He didn't believe that the people from the other territories would be kind enough to leave a remnant soul for him. Evil Sword Earthly Sovereign's remnant soul continued to explain, "That was because one of the earthly sovereigns thought that my evil demon sword was pretty good, so he didn't destroy it. He refined the evil demon's sword and gave it to his grandson. Clan M. Chapter 2989. The remnant of my soul that I left in the evil demon's sword when I was alive was left behind. After the grandson of the earthly sovereign had obtained the evil demon's sword, his strength had increased by leaps and bounds and he had gained the attention of the entire territory. His grandfather did not have the heart to directly kill him. Thus, he had suppressed him in the underground palace. From then on, the remnant of evil sword earthly sovereign's soul and the sword spirit of the evil demon's sword had regained control of the evil demon's sword. He had summoned the myriad sword sect to help him remove the loosened seal. If what you said is true, then you are a disgrace to the supreme longevity. Even if the supreme longevity needed to be reborn, it would not do that to ordinary people. It would cause unnecessary killings. The secret to becoming an earthly sovereign lies at the end of the eternal sovereign world, which is the foggy area. You can obtain natural earthly sovereign rules and essence there. Foggy area? I've never heard of it. No. Upon hearing this, the remnant of evil sword earthly sovereign's soul was speechless. The two of you have never heard of it? Are you really from the eternal sovereign world? Night Sorrow replied, then asked the others in the space hollow, have you heard of the foggy area at the end of the eternal sovereign world? Murom Zilu and the others answered one after another. After the remnant of evil sword earthly sovereign's soul said that, he asked doubtfully, could it be? That area has been hidden by someone? Night Sorrow had cultivated the power of merit, so he could tell that the remnant of evil sword earthly sovereign's soul was not lying. Hence, he continued to ask. The remnant of evil sword earthly sovereign's soul told him what had happened to him in the foggy area. If what he had said was true, then the territories that were ranked at the top should have already left the foggy area. As for the people from the realm of the gods and other territories, unless they could find that area, it would be difficult for them to become earthly sovereigns. Night Sorrow made some deductions, but he did not come to any conclusion. Night Sorrow continued to ask, back then, you were able to hide a remnant of your soul and the evil demon's sword right under the nose of an earthly sovereign. You should know a very advanced concealment technique, right? Teach it to me, and I will teach you a secret technique to strengthen your spiritual soul. I will let you recover. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, evil sword earthly sovereign's remnant soul immediately became excited. Night Sorrow said slowly. Evil sword earthly sovereign's remnant soul asked in confusion when Night Sorrow mentioned the name of the realm of the gods. So you're all from the celestial realm. If I'd known, I wouldn't have attacked the myriad sword sect. Isn't that letting down supreme longevity? Since it didn't result in a big mistake, then forget it. Soon, he and the chaotic heavenly crystal beast learned the concealment technique. Night Sorrow summoned everyone from the god world. But there are so many earthly sovereigns and earthly sovereigns outside. Can you hide them? Xiao Tianxian asked doubtfully. Don't worry, I've already learned a concealment technique that contains the earthly sovereign rules. Even an earthly sovereign might not be able to detect me. If we hide here, we shouldn't be discovered. But other people's memories might be found to be problematic. Don't worry. Those Supremes and Earth Supremes were extremely arrogant. He wouldn't do such a thing to a hegemon. In their eyes, those below the Supremes are ants. He knew that in the eyes of Yu Ling and the others, the hegemons of the realm of the gods could not hide any secrets. All right. The chaotic heavenly crystal beast replied. What? Recognize you as my master? No, that's absolutely not possible. Don't worry, I'll make a heavenly oath. Clan. Chapter 2990. I can temporarily recognize you as my master, but you have to give me some benefits, right? After knowing the chaotic heavenly crystal beast for a long time, Night Sorrow realized that this fellow was not as fierce as he looked. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow said, if we can deceive everyone and enter the finals, I'll give you half of my reward. We'll be considered partners. What do you think? The chaotic heavenly crystal beast immediately agreed and said, "Don't worry. If I can fight, I'll definitely do my best." After saying that, Night Sorrow stopped talking and waited for the teleportation to begin. The people in the Divine World territory still did not know who was left. We've already killed so many people in the Tao World territory. They shouldn't have many points left, so there's nothing to be afraid of. As for the people in the remaining territories, it's really hard to say. There must be someone with a super powerful concealment technique who has been hiding since entering the small world and hasn't made a move since the beginning. That should be the case. The hidden territories definitely don't have as many points as us. The Tao World territory definitely doesn't have any either. As for the final result, let's wait and see. Before Night Sorrow went into hiding, he had told him that the Divine World territory's points would definitely be the first in this small world. Upon realizing that Night Sorrow was no longer in the team, Supreme Yuling said with a smile, "It seems that Night Sorrow has already been killed by self-destruction. That's why the rest of the people in the Divine World territory have been hiding." Dao Wui said unwillingly. "Dao Wui, you're too much. We won't scare a Divine World territory to this extent. If Night Sorrow wasn't hiding in someone's space grotto heaven, we wouldn't have to target these small fries at all. Even if we let them enter the finals, they'll still end up dying in battle." To him, the remaining people in the Divine World territory were completely ants among ants. Dao Wui said unhappily. Then he continued, "I wonder who else is left here." Supreme Yuling comforted him. The two of them waited peacefully with the rest of the self-esteem for 100 years. Under everyone's gazes, the remaining cultivators in the 16th small world were teleported out one after another. As it turned out, Blue Heart had also been assigned to the 16th small world. However, she had been lucky enough to find a concealment array formation when she entered the small world. She had hidden herself within it, and not only had she obtained some fortuitous opportunities, she had also managed to survive until the end. When Dao Jun saw Lan Xian, he was filled with anger. Dao Jun looked at the people from the heavenly realm with hatred. When he realized that Night Sorrow was no longer with them, he said angrily. When the Supreme saw that Night Sorrow was not among the God World's troops, Dao Wui immediately spoke up. "Thank you, Supreme Yuling." Moreover, they clearly understood the value of Night Sorrow. When Supremacy Yuling arrived before the people of the God World, she immediately berated them coldly. Furthermore, they managed to drag out the severely injured Master of Myriad Sword. Evil Sword Earthly Sovereign's concealment technique was something he could not unravel. Xiao Tianxian spoke with great difficulty as Sovereign Yuling suppressed the crowd. As expected, he's already dead. Upon hearing this, many Supremes nodded in satisfaction. However, at that moment, Dao Wui suddenly sent a voice transmission. "Supreme Yuling, I don't think this is a good idea. Why don't you use the soul-searching mystic technique on everyone in the God World territory and check on Night Sorrow's situation?" You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.